These are live shots with you now. They're at 86.6 kilometers to go for a breakaway. Ahead of the peloton by 8 minutes and 27 seconds was the last decent time check we had. And this is Liquigas on the front of the peloton trying to control things. The group of the Maya Rosa, which is, of course, on the shoulders of David Arroyo, the Spaniard riding for Caisse. Up ahead, some riders trying to go for glory, possibly trying to take away the mountains classification jersey from Matthew Lloyd of Omega Pharma Lotto today. The Australian under some severe pressure from some of those riders in there, namely Javier Tondo and Jan Bekkelens. They are both in the breakaway. The breakaway is Bekkelens, Omega Pharma Lotto. Of course, Lloyd is a teammate of his. Maybe he's just there to try and take away points. Have a double whammy. Javier Tondo of Cervélo TestTeam, Francesco Feli of Aqua and Sapone, Branislav Samalau of Quickstep. There is Javier Tondo. Luca Mazzanti of Katusha, Yuri Kritsov of AG2R Le Mondial, Jackson Rodriguez of Androni, Decca Giovanni, William Bonnet in the middle of your shot there, more known as a sprinter than anything else, but he is a pretty good breakaway rider. And Leonardo Duque of Cofidis. Well, what remains of the BMC team are around the red jersey, the points jersey, with the white box in the middle there saying BMC, of the man with #1 on his back. He is the world champion, Cadel Evans, coming into this race as the highest ranking rider in the world to get that #1. The press are now full of the words duel to the death for those two, Ivan Basso and Cadel Evans. Arnold Jennison retiring, another one bites the dust. 147 men now in the Giro d'Italia. That is a big blow for the leader in the pink jersey, David Arroyo, because Jennison has done a lot of work, and he did a lot of work on the Zoncolan. Maybe his pace was a little bit up and down, but Jennison has been riding very well in the mountains. Big blow for the race leader, David Arroyo, one of his mountain domestics going in possibly the most important day in the Giro d'Italia. I don't think I'm overstating it, but the man who'll know, sitting beside me, Sean Kelly. Sean, is this really the most important day in the Tour de France, in the Giro d'Italia?
Well, it looks like it's going to be a major day. Looking at the classement at the moment, everything is so tight in the general up there for the race win. It's going to be, I think, it should be a very important day, and turned out to be a really important day for everybody. And I think the way we see it again, Liquigas are taking control of the race very early, and they're going to try and make it really difficult for the rest of them in the general classement, because they have the best team. They have two riders up there still in the general classement, and you have to just make it difficult earlier on. And when you look at the route today, it is a very, very difficult route, and it's one of two which goes into tomorrow as well, another day. But you have to go for it on the first occasion, and they are going about that today very early, and I think we will see a lot of fireworks on those climbs.
Vladimir Carpets by himself here, away from the front of the peloton. Once again, we've seen him do this once already to try and gain time over the peloton, but not to be this time around, because I don't think Liquigas are going to let him get anywhere near away from anything. He's a bit of the way down on the general classification. He's 14 minutes down, but he's a dangerous rider. He wants to keep himself up there. He's 15th overall. 15th is nothing really for a rider of the caliber of Vladimir Carpets. Again, maybe he thinks he's got enough time to just go and pull back a whole load, and they won't worry about it. Here is the breakaway. At the front, Jackson Rodriguez. We've seen him in a mountain breakaway already. Yuri Kritsov, we've seen him too. Luca Mazzanti for Katusha. Big tour rider in the Quickstep outfit is Branislav Samalau. Been riding very well indeed, especially in the mountains. Sean, the riders in this breakaway, I mean, it looks to me as though they're trying to, especially Javier Tondo is trying to wrench that green jersey off the shoulders of Matt Lloyd today.
Yes, well, he is up there in the mountain classement, and you know, that is something for him to go for. Also, I think he's thinking of the stage, and if they can hold a good advantage, and they've got a good advantage there. But he's coming down, as we can see. You know, it was, I think, over 8.5 minutes plus, but now it's coming down a bit, and that's going to be interesting to see how, you know, how quick the Liquigas can really pull it back. But Tondo is going to go for the mountain classement because he was up there. He was up there already in the classement, and you know, there's a lot of points on offer today, so he could move up a lot in that classement. But also the stage victory, I think, is in the back of his mind if they're allowed, you know, to hold on out front with enough of an advantage as they go into the last 20-30 kilometres.
There's actually 25 points available today for the overall standings in the mountains classification. Javier Tondo starting the day on 16. Matthew Lloyd has 29. So you can see what the plan would be with Javier Tondo. That's a bonus. If he can get the stage win, that's a real one for him. The parkour today, let's have a look at the course today, because that's the really important thing we need to know. 97 kilometres essentially is flat, or was flat this morning. Our breakaway riders are now into the back half, the back loop of this circuit. Is 195 kilometres long, just under 100 kilometres of absolute torture. They rise up towards Africa. It's a steady climb to Africa, 18 kilometres, and then drop down to the bottom of Trevigno. Now, the Trevigno climb is very steep, 11 kilometres in length, and the descent is very difficult indeed off the Trevigno into the valley, down at the bottom at Mazzo Vatellina, and then straight into the Passo del Mortirolo. And the Mortirolo just came into the Giro d'Italia about 20 years ago and has become absolutely legendary. I think it was Lance Armstrong, actually, who said it's the hardest mountain he's ever ridden anywhere. A lot of people say it's as hard, if not harder, than the Zoncolan. We saw what happened on the Zoncolan, the incredible images of Ivan Basso and Cadel Evans riding up side by side until Basso turned up the wick and Evans was almost crying, trying to limit his losses against Basso, riding away from him. Pulled it back the next day a little bit on Plan de Corones. 28 seconds he pulled back on his great rival for this year's Giro d'Italia, and it doesn't stop there. Off the Mortirolo, it's a nasty descent as well. Not quite as difficult as Trevigno, but they have another plunge down to the valley into Edolo and back up to Africa once again. Where is the big attack going to come, Sean? That's the question.
Well, I think it's impossible to forecast where it's going to come when you look at the race, the way it's been the last number of days. And again today, I think it's going to be further out than we would expect, because there's a lot of time to make up for the riders like of Basso in the general classement. He's, you know, quite a bit off the race leader, Arroyo. He's at 2:27, and I think they're getting a little bit worried about Arroyo, the way he's performing here, and you know, he might be just the confidence might be growing a bit. The team yesterday, we see them, they were taking control of the race, so that gives us an idea that they are thinking about to hold on to this jersey, but it's going to be a difficult day for him. But you never know. We've seen riders do some unbelievable performance when they get into a race leader's position with the race leader's jersey on their shoulders, but you know, they're not going to leave any chance go by in the Liquigas team, because Basso and company, they're really, you know, up in the pace, as we can see here. They're very earlier on today.
Yep, they've got it controlled, well, they're trying to control it straight away. They've let these guys get away. There's a big gap up to these guys, over 8 minutes. And going for the sprint, Yuri Kritsov and Jan Bekelens. Looks like Kritsov just gets that one. Now they're into Africa proper now. We've been to Africa plenty of times. First time we ever came here in the Giro d'Italia was 1962, when Vittorio Adorni won a stage here. And it's visited Africa since then fairly regularly. It didn't come back again until the 1990s. In fact, it was 1990. Luis Sierra was the rider who won in Africa. And in fact, he was the first man ever to go across the top of the Mortirolo. When it was included in the Giro d'Italia. So 1990, Luis Sierra, the winner in Africa. And since then, we come back in 91, 94, 96, 99, and 2006, when Ivan Basso was in the pink jersey and won here in Africa. Went on to win the Giro d'Italia, of course, whilst riding for CSC. Well, he seems to be back in some of that climbing form that we saw him in then. He had that killer look in his eyes the other day on the Zoncolan, and when he rode away from Evans, he looked supremely confident. Sassi, who is the coach, Professor Aldo Sassi, the coach of both Ivan Basso now and Cadel Evans, says that Evans is physically the most incredible athlete he's ever come across in his life, but he lacks focus, and not so much focus, but he doesn't have that killer instinct, whereas Basso, he says, is not as good an athlete as Cadel Evans, not as strong, but he has that ability to push himself beyond something you would normally associate with supreme athleticism. He doesn't regard them as either as rivals, he just regards them both as riders who he coaches and friends, and he's absolutely vehemently anti-doping, Aldo Sassi, so he would be pleased if either one of them won. Well, they're playing it up in the press today, Sean, certainly in the Gazzetta dello Sport. If you look at page 22, it says the duel between Cadel Evans and Ivan Basso themselves. Basso 2 minutes and 27 seconds down on David Arroyo, and then another 42 seconds off. It's Cadel Evans, the two of them side by side. He said, they say off the bike, at the end we will be friends. In a tour we are enemies, says the two riders in question. Cadel Evans, the world champion, and Ivan Basso, a former winner, of course, of this Giro d'Italia. Massive, massive day here in the Giro, possibly the most important day of the whole 3 weeks. Vladimir Carpets having another go at pulling out some time, Sean, but can't say it's doing an awful lot, can you?
No, it's not going to happen here at the stage or in the race. If he was in the breakaway, tried to get in the breakaway in the morning, I would understand that. The position he's in at the moment, you know, he's 14 and a half minutes down, but trying to ride away here from a big bunch of riders, the whole bunch really. And when you have a team, you know, taking control and, you know, really starting to push on at the moment, as we come to you know, the finish is in 82 kilometers of a lap. So as we come through Africa, 82 kilometers to the you know, of a lap, and it's so difficult. There's no point in trying to ride away here, and it's not going to be possible at all. We see him doing a number of days ago, and to my surprise, he was allowed quite a bit of time. He pulled out, I think, 2.5 minutes, a little bit plus, but today you can see, and you know, if you know the tactic of bike racing, which any professional bike rider would know, you can see it's not going to work here today, and I don't know what he's trying to do. It would be better just to wait and try and see if there's a moment later on between the mountains, for example in the valley, after, you know, after climbing you know, one of the climbs as we want this lap before the Mortirolo, try and go away there. But here it's I think it's energy just throwing it out the window.
Yeah. Down the drain for all that precious energy. I mean, surely you can look over his shoulder and see that he hasn't managed to pull out any distance at all. Maybe his sponsors need him to go through Africa in front of the rest of the crowds, which are huge here, and they always are on this sort of stage, especially with the Mortirolo. Maybe they need him to go through first, just for viewing on television. I don't know. Doesn't seem to be any racing reason for it whatsoever. The gap has come down quite significantly. It was as far out as nearly 9 minutes. And as they go over the line, 5 minutes and 4 seconds now only the gap. Liquigas have really turned up the heat, excuse the pun, at the front. As they go through Africa for the first time, this is where they will finish at the end of the day. Between now and the next time they visit this finish line, they will climb all the way up the Trevigno, plunge down to the valley below at Maso di Valtellina, up then onto the Mortirolo, which you can hardly see when you're actually approaching it. and the torture that will go through as go through their minds as they go up the Mortirolo today is just, well, it's unconscionable, really. And then down the other side into Odolo, and then on to Africa again. The steady climb up to Africa. 25 points on offer today for the mountains classification. Javier Tondo lying 7th in that competition with 16 points. Matthew Lloyd in the green jersey has 29 points. Presumably then Sean Jan Bekkelens, who's a little bit further back in the mountains classification. He's got 10 points. It's a sort of, for him, if you want to look at it this way, it's a sort of win-win situation. If you can get maximum points away from Javier Tondo, then it does his cause quite good. He's 12th overall, Jan Bekkelens, but it also helps to protect Matt Lloyd.
Yes, he's up there, and he will be trying to take the points ahead of Tondo, that's sure. But again, I think Bekkelens, we've seen him in the past. He is, you know, climbing pretty well, and out of this breakaway, he probably, you know, after Tondo, he could be one of the better ones, and that is the tactic of the Omega Pharma Lotto team: get a man up in the breakaway and see where it goes, to see how much they're allowed time advantage out in front. But again, today it's going to be a difficult one for the breakaway, because the Liquigas team are taking it up. Normally in a situation when you have at a stage like this, the general classement men who are riding for the overall victory or the place on the podium, and the teams, they would take it a bit easier here today, but it's not the case with Liquigas, and the races, you know, really been it's really been turned up and taken to control by that team, and they're, you know, out again today to try, you know, take this overall lead today if possible. If not, take as much time as possible from the other favourites, and especially from the race leader Arroyo. Try and put him under pressure, because if you allow him to get through today, tomorrow is a very difficult day, but then the confidence, you know, grows each day that he holds onto the jersey. And if a rider like Arroyo gets through today, well, then he might do an exception right tomorrow. So you have to, you know, really take every opportunity at the moment with the advantage he has got over the big favourites.
It's true, though, isn't it, that neither Basso nor Evans especially, have written off David Arroyo's chances at all. They've been saying that he still has that pink jersey on his shoulders. It lifts you. He's still a very good rider, and it is not a two-horse race whatsoever, as Javier Tondo gets out of the saddle and puts a little bit of the pressure on his breakaway companions. They're on the slopes of the Trevigno. Very, very steep, narrow section, and a very difficult descent off this. Will anybody try and escape from the peloton? Anybody put the pressure on that descent? Who knows? Well, putting the pressure on at the front of this little breakaway group at the moment, it's Francesco Fiali. This is Chris Froome. All alone. Bit of a problem for Froome, clearly. And being tailed by the last of the Jaguars from the Sky team. Bradley Wiggins was up at the front. Froome has done a lot of work in this year's Giro d'Italia, but a very good climber.
I think he's maybe suffering, sorry, David. We see Froome there yesterday coming in very late. He was the last man.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And finished on his own, you know, 6.5 minutes down. If you look at the Royals just in front of him around the 4 minutes, so it tells me that he, you know, he is suffering for some reason.
He may not make it to the end of today's stage. Who knows? The weather has been kind so far. Heaven knows what will happen if it manages to bucket down on the descent of Trevigno, or indeed from the Mortirolo. It's not quite as difficult down Mortirolo as it is from Trevigno, but even so, Vladimir Karpets chasing. Well, that's rather optimistic, I would say. I mean, he's certainly putting in some effort to try and get away from the riders behind him in the peloton, but even so, with Liquigas wanting to control this, it's going to be very, very difficult to get away at all for Vladimir Karpets. I would have expected, I was sort of hoping a little bit more from Karpets actually in this year's Giro d'Italia, but he doesn't seem to have been able to stick with the real climbs. Always going to be difficult for a big guy.
Yes, and on the real difficult stages, that's where he's lost the time on a number of occasions. He was looking very good in the earlier part of the race before we got to the difficult climbs, the mountaintop finishes, and he was up there in a very good position, but then just slowly started to lose time on days here and there, and it's just growing out over that 14 minutes. It's a long way off, and it's surprising to see what he's trying to do here today. A rider of that quality, we know, the way he can climb. If he's on a good day, well, then you just wait and you allow the big teams and the other favourites who are really up in the classement to do it. And if there's an opportunity later in the last 35 kilometres, have a go for it then. But at this stage, you're really not going to, get anywhere in the positions in the way the race, the way the tactic is being played at the moment by the teams, and especially by Liquigas.
They're turning off now onto Santa Cristina, which is up towards the top of the Trevigno. And you can see it's just a winding, narrow back, a water of a road. And that's it for Vladimir Karpets. I think possibly wanted to have a go. Wasn't going to happen, but he got through Africa before everybody else. I'm sure the sponsors will appreciate that, if nothing else. Look at the pace being set by Liquigas. There's real intent here. This is not just about keeping tempo. Valerio Agnoli is the man at the front. Once again, the man he's worn the best young riders jersey in this Giro d'Italia, and they're really putting the hurt on. Meanwhile, up the road, 4 minutes up the road, is the remains of the breakaway being shattered by the 14, 15, 16% of this, and it's Javier Tondo who's suffering. Great climber that he is, he's off the back at the moment, he's going to have to work hard. On the left-hand side of the screen in the small box is Branislav Samalau from Quick Step. On the right-hand side is this mortifyingly fast pace being set by Valerio Agnoli in the Liquigas team here on the lower slopes of Trevigno. This is going to cause some legs to ache. There's no doubt about that. Spoke to Cervélo TestTeam's Daniel Lloyd last night, and he said everybody is absolutely shattered. Marcel Zieberg disappears from this year's Giro d'Italia. He's done most of his job. He did the job he had to do yesterday for Andre Greipel, finally getting a stage victory and the last chance they could do it. They've now lost Goss, Hansen and Zieberg in HTC Colombia. Look at this. Oh, any club rider in the world knows what that feels like when they come around the corner and think, I don't want to go up that. But look at the pace they're setting. This is going to hurt some legs by the top, Sean.
It certainly is, and we can see there, like, it's really blown the bunch to pieces. We can see the gaps as they come around that corner, and we're still with 73 kilometers to go, and what we've got to climb, this just major difficult from here on in, and to see them really, turning it up, the pace so strongly very early. It's a surprise to me, because it's
too early.
I'm just wondering how long is the teammates going to last, because that is the situation when you put your teammates in the front and you make them ride close to 100%. You blow the bunch to pieces, of course, but the thing you always have to think of is you need men later on, and with 73 kilometers to go, and when we get to the other climbs, when you get to the Mortirolo, you need somebody there with you that can take you up quite a bit, because a 12-kilometer climb, if Basso and Nibali has to do something there, well then it's going to be a long road for them, and I think you have to have the teammates who will be able to do it there and ride a lot of that, at least 50% of the Mortirolo, and get you to win 5 or 6 kilometers of summit, and then the leaders of the team can go in the attack. So if we see a situation like that, we could see the other the other favourites just looking at each other, and maybe not an awful lot happening. And sometimes it's the case when you get the real difficult stages. It's so difficult that the race we're expecting, the exciting racing, we don't see it, because they're all afraid of each other. The one who attacks too early, he's afraid he will pay the price.
True enough, doesn't make it any less important as a stage, though. In fact, it's signal. I mean, even if that happens, Sean, it signals the fact that they are all scared of each other, and that it is still a really close race, and that we've got one more day to make the attacks. It sort of even heightens the tension.
Yes, it does. They have another day to have a go, and tomorrow's another difficult day. But on the climb of the Mortirolo, you would expect that you'd have a lot of action. It's always a place where we see Gartelli here, having a go. So this is going to again, there's other riders here who will be trying to get across to Gartelli now. The Liquigas, I think they will try and keep just going at this real strong pace they're doing, and just ride as long as possible they can at that with the domestiques.
No panic for Agnoli, just keep tapping off that rhythm as Stefano Gartelli, winner of course on the Plan de Corones time trial, gets going away. Well, maybe it's a little bit deceptive, the pace by Liquigas. They set it, Agnoli pumping away at the pedals, pushing a smallish gear. Certainly if Gartelli gives an attack and can go away that easily, maybe the pace isn't quite as high as we thought. Certainly all the big favourites are still with Liquigas, but when they came to the bottom of that climb, they certainly drilled it for a bit. Gartelli by himself then, clearly in very fine form after the Plan de Corones, and maybe waiting for another day to have a go. This is Javier Tondo. Or is it not? No, this is at the back of the group. My apologies, I thought it was Tondo trying to get back up to this little quartet at the top. Rodriguez, Fiali, Duque and Samalau by themselves. Tondo is off the back. I think Jan Bekkelens was trying to make contact with them, but he hasn't managed yet. Gartelli's got a decent gap now, away from the front of the peloton. We're not yet at the Mortirolo, but we've already had a message on Twitter from noted, very well respected Australian journalist Rupert Guinness, saying, I remember I was there the first time they went over the Mortirolo. I could not believe how steep it was. I was in a car. Neither could the riders believe how steep it was. That was way back in 1990. Now you're dating yourself there a little bit, Rupert. Luis Sierra was the first man over the top. He was also the victor when they got to Africa at the end as well. Since then, there have been victories in Africa for Franco Chioccioli, Marco Pantani, Ivan Gotti, Roberto Heras and Ivan Basso in that order: 91, 94, 96, 99 and the year 2006. This slope here, if you remember that back that far in the Giro d'Italia, this is where Miguel Indurain just blew to pieces, exactly where Stefano Gartelli is now. He had the hunger knock and just went out the back door, and a young Marco Pantani went away from him to win the stage in Africa in 1994. It was looking good for Miguel Indurain's third consecutive Giro d'Italia, but on this slope he just went bang, big style. And when a man that big goes pop, Sean, there is no way back, is there? There's no hanging in there. When you're big and strong and heavy and you run out of food, that's it.
Yes, when you run out of food, it's certainly it. But sometimes we see the attacks from the better climbers. They can make a burst for a period of, 500 meters, a kilometer, and to hold it going is the difficulty. And we see Gartelli here when he takes off, he pulls out an advantage very quickly, but will he be able to keep on pulling out? And that's what you've got to do here if you're going to get away from the guys. And we see there the Liquigas just continue on the same speed. They might up a fraction, but Gartelli, of course, in the general placement, he's not a danger man, so they're not going to panic about him at the moment. He's not going to come into the equation tactic-wise. It's just they have a tactic for today, how they're going to ride this race on those climbs, and on the one we're on the moment, that would be with the director sportif, and they're working to that the tactic book at the moment. And Gartelli will not really change the situation because he's going the attack, and for Gartelli to ride away here also, it's going to be difficult because the team of Liquigas very strong. They're going to be a number of them last out for a long time, because at the moment we still have 70 kilometers to go. I'd be surprised if they start dropping off at this point, and it would be a major disaster if they do for Basso and Nibali.
It would be. Another massive climb today in the Giro d'Italia, the legend of the Passo del Mortirolo. They're going over the top of that today, as we know. It's 12 kilometers of a climb. We'll look at it a little more in detail when we get there. This, though, is going up to Trevigno and then plummeting down the other side to the base of the valley. It's really not very nice. There's a 14% ramp in the middle of this. It's only 11 kilometers long, but it's steady, 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 steady all the way. All those switchbacks, and Gartelli has managed to use that to get away. Not ultra steep, but steep enough to make a decent attack. Not steep enough to shed too many of the favorites at the moment. Branislav Samalau off the front of the little breakaway group there. He's got 3 other men with him, and it's Leonardo Duque who's going up with him at the moment. Again, shows it's not super ultra steep, Sean, if somebody like Duque can ride with Samalau here.
Yes, that is an indication that it's not, you know, majorly steep or majorly fast. And, you know, you see Samalu making the effort here, but Duque wouldn't be a good climber. But as a better sprinter than he's climbing, he can still get over some of those climbs well. And, you know, he could be just really digging in here. Will he last the pace? That's the question, because it's all about, on a climb, when it's not majorly steep, it's about how fast they go up it. And sometimes on the climbs that they haven't a huge percentage-wise, if they go at a real fast rate, that's when you can do a lot of damage. And of course, you know, here they're pushing on. They know they have to really try and keep it going here because the gap is coming down, and they've got rid of some of the other breakaway riders, and they need to do that because there's always a number of them will be not contributing here. And Samalu seems to be really wanting to push it on at the moment.
The rear wheel of Stefano Gartelli. Can you see the size of the sprocket on that? It must be a 28 or a 29. It's huge. Must be on the, at least I think that's what I was seeing. I'll go back down there. I might see a little bit closer. Just caught a fleeting glimpse of it. What about the spike setups today, Sean? I know some people get completely turned off by all the tech garb that goes on around these big mountain stages, but other people are absolutely fascinated, especially those guys who and women who go out and ride sportive events and want to know how they fare against these sort of riders. In terms of gearing, in the modern sense, I mean, it would have been different in your day, I'm sure. Just run us through, first of all, what you would have put on for something like this today, and what they'll sort of be running now.
Well, of course, the Mortirolo, I never rode it, never went up it at all. So I just, you know, from reading from what riders, you know, talk about it. And I remember when Lance Armstrong went training there, he said this was the toughest climb, or one of the toughest climbs that he ever rode up, and that gives you, you know, an idea. And we see it, you know, in the race as well, how difficult it is. And there's such a difference in the gears from now today and, you know, 15, 20 years ago, because the ratio you have now, you have, you know, 10 speed at the rear, 11 speed, I think some of them are using. As you know, when you go back to the earlier time when I started professionally, you had 7 speed or 8 speed maximum, and so you haven't got that ratio which you have got now. And of course, with the 39, which is the front chainring, the smaller one is 39 and a 53. That also gives you, you know, a huge ratio as well, much more than we had when I started. When I was in there, my early years, we had a 42. So, you know, the low gears for climbing, you didn't have them, and you had to change your sprockets a lot when you were going to a stage like this. And today, you know, they're going to have 39, 26 or 28, something like that. And also, some of the riders differ. You know, some like they pedal a lot, they have a very good fast cadence. Others they climb with power. So it depends on the individuals as well. And there would be, you know, quite a different ratios of gears in the bunch, and with the riders, different styles.
I wouldn't be surprised if some of them are riding compacts today, which are the 34 inner chainring, 50 outer chainring, and anything from an 11 up to a 28, 20 at the back. We know that on the Plan de Corones, some of the new SRAM kit was available, and they were using a 36 inner chainring at the front and a whacking great 32 dinner plate of a sprocket at the back. That was Alexander Vinokurov was using that. But certainly the range of gears you can go across now is phenomenal, and things have had to change since you were riding, Sean. I mean, the technology that's gone into making chains, for example, has upped and upped and upped, because the more gear sprocket you have at the back, the thinner the chain has to be.
Yes, and you know, that is something which is there's a lot of progress being made there in the last years with the extra sprockets. The chain is much lighter, but you know, it's one of the great things in biking, the development of the bicycle. The gear ratio you have, the more sprockets you have. For a mountain day like today, when you're racing, it's so important. Also the gear change, you know, we can change now on the brake levers themselves. You know, in my time you had to go down, it was on the down tube just up for the drinking bottle is, so you have to take your hands off the handlebars. So you know, those are all you know, very important things, and the bicycle has developed so much in the last 15-20 years. From the time I was professional, it's, you know, developed hugely.
Other things that might play a part today, although it's less so than it used to be. I mean, there used to be a stage where people used to have climbing bikes, much lighter bikes, much lighter wheels than they would normally run. But bike technology in general has gone through the roof, so that a lot of the wheels are much lighter than they ever used to be. But it is true, the heavier the wheels, the more difficult it's going to be to push uphill. It makes a huge difference like this for wheels, for climbing. These are our breakaway men who've been whittled down to 4. It started off with Bekkelens of Omega Pharma Lotto, Fiali of Aqua Saponi, Samalau of Quickstep, Mazzanti of Katusha, Kvitsov of AG2R, Rodriguez of Androni, Bonnet of Bibox Bouygues Telecom, Tondo of Cervélo, and Duque of Cofidis. And you can see there's only 4 remaining at the front now, including Fiali of Aqua Saponi, Samalau Quickstep, Rodriguez of Androni De Giovanni, and Duque of Cofidis. That's it. Gartelli 3:17 back on our leading men. Like the shades, they're cool. It's a new set of shades on the market. I've not really seen them before, but they are good. They look lovely. Well, I was just looking at the rear sprockets there. They're not quite as big as I thought. I probably caught a glimpse of the hub and the spokes just sticking out of it, but I don't think there's a massive gear ratio on the back of Gartelli's bike. Grinding away at the front here, Fiali on the left in the red and white. At the back in the other red and yellow is Duque of Cofidis. The man in the blue was Samalau. Getting a bit spread out all over the place, even the breakaway. That's Jan Bekkelens, who was in the break. There, with the #1 on his back in the red jersey, black shorts, is Cadel Evans. Another question we had from down under, because I know a lot of you are watching this stage live on Eurosport World. Welcome to you if you're watching in the United States. Whatever you're doing, if you've sat back with a beer, if you've come in from a ride and late at night after your meal, sitting down and watching this, if you're keeping the rest of the household awake by screaming at the television for Evans, let us know if you're watching on Eurosport World. Question from down under: should Evans just follow Basso today and Arroyo, or should he really go on the attack, Sean?
I think he has to go on the attack, and you know, it's the opportunity today on the Mortirolo, on that one, in the last you know, 4 or 5 kilometers of it. If you can attack, and if there's the occasion where you see Basso is suffering a bit, it's the time to go, because then you have the long descent, and if you pull out, you know, the advantage on the top slopes of the Mortirolo, you know, you can do a good descent, and then the climb up to the finish today in Africa. Basso and his teammates are going to be pretty well scattered, and I'll not be surprised if they're all gone well before we get to that last 5 or 6 kilometers of the Mortirolo. It will be interesting to see if Nibali can hang in there, if he's on a good day. That will be important for Basso, because he will also, you know, make the pace. And if there's some attacks from the other favourites, I think Nibali would be the one who we might see chasing. If Basso is a little bit under his best, and that is the question. Like, if Basso is good, well, then he's going to, you know, go with anyone who's a danger man to him in the general, and certainly Evans would be, you know, the number one candidate. If he attack, he would have to be, you know, to follow him. And, you know, if you look back at the last number of days, Basso was the best one in the real difficult finish a number of days ago. Will he be like that today? There's no guarantee, and that is a bike racing, and that's the interesting thing about it. You can be so good 2-3 days ago on a real difficult mountain, but today you can be a little bit under, and you know, we could see a change in that, and Evans might be the one who is the better man of the real top of the general classement and the big favourites. He could be the one today. And if you are on a good day, well, it's so important. You can do so much damage on a stage like this one, and you know, the very difficult final, that 80 kilometres, it's going to be, you know, really mark everybody in the end of the stage.
Here is Stefano Gartelli chasing by himself to try and get up to those breakaway riders. Won the Giro himself in the year 2000, has tried again since, has never managed to do so. He's worn the green jersey of best climber. He went over the Gavia a few years ago by himself in a lone attack wearing that green jersey. and just telling the rest of the crowd to just go away, leave me alone. We've had lots of people, maybe watching the Giro d'Italia for the first time, or watching bike racing for the first time, saying, don't those crowds get in the way, don't they worry people? Yeah, they do at times. There have been times in the past where people have been knocked off. Very, very famous situations where you've had 2 or 3 really big riders. Gianni Bugno was one. Gianni Bugno came around a corner and a spectator stepped out. I think was he world champion at the time? I can't remember. He stepped out in front of Gianni Bugno, knocked him off the bike. Bugno got up, picked the bike up and hit the spectator with it, and got back on his bike again. And who was the Italian rider for Telecom, who was going up Alpe d'Huez and for a lone win, still won and got knocked off near the top? And I can't remember his name offhand. Somebody will remember. Somebody will tell me, or I'll remember in a minute. It just has slipped my mind. It does happen. But, I mean, do you notice it as a rider, Sean? Do you notice these guys running alongside of you? Or are you just so focused it doesn't register until something nasty happens?
Yes, you see it. Yeah, it's out there in front of you, and when they're, you know, running in front of you, running beside you, you are aware of it. You just you don't you know, get involved in it. You continue what you're doing. You're focused, as we can see the Liquigas riders. You just focus out in front of you. The problem is that when you're leading on a climb, and as we see, everybody close in, and as you come to them, you get, you know, 6-8 feet from them. They step out and they make a space for you, and you're always a little bit concerned that there's somebody there will stay in the middle of the road, in the middle of your pathway, and not get out in time. But you know, you have to just get on with it and hope that everybody will move out. And it's amazing it works so well that we don't see, you know, more of them getting tangled up with the spectators, because you know, the spectators can get so carried away. They've been there all day for a number of hours, having a few drinks, and some of them, like, can be, you know, a little bit, that calculation a little bit out. And I'm amazed that we don't see more riders being knocked off on these big mountain, the mountain top finishes especially, where there's, you know, just a line of people at each side and just room for one bike rider to go through.
Indeed. Gartelli still out by himself. Into the mist he goes, as the cloud rolls over the top of this Trevigno ascent. Still not up there. Is that Gartelli almost catching Tondo? Difficult to tell, but he's got a Mavic service bike with him. I would guess it is. And Javier Tondo. Yes, it is. Look, because here is the Liquigas train, so to speak. Gartelli is up ahead of them. He was just rounding the top of the next bend, and there was a Cervélo rider ahead of him, and the only man that could be was Javier Tondo. It's clearly not the result Tondo will be wanting today. There he is up ahead. Gartelli going great guns at this, but he's still not being able to pull out a huge gap on Liquigas, Sean. They are pushing it along. There is the breakaway riders. And Fiali has had enough, I think. Looking behind. Thank you very much, World Cycles. Giuseppe Guerini. I knew I'd remember it at some point. But thank you for putting it in my mouth quicker. That was on the Twitter feed, which is Spokesmen, by the way. S-P-O-K-E-S-M-E-N. Giuseppe Guerini getting knocked off. Wow, look at that. Straight past Javier Tondo goes Stefano Gartelli, and he's reaching William Bonnet and Yuri Kritsov very quickly indeed. Gartelli goes up to the back of these breakaway riders, and he's going to go straight past them. Won't be surprised that it's him. Whoop, Mazzanti didn't even see he was coming, and past he goes. Now, if you're watching on Eurosport 2, we're going to be joining Eurosport International, British Eurosport 2. We're also joining International very, very shortly, in about 10 seconds, and we'll be back here on British Eurosport 2 and on Eurosport International in just a second. Welcome, viewers on Eurosport International, who are joining us right now live here on the Giro d'Italia. It is stage 19. It's probably the most important, or could be the most important stage on this year's Giro. We have the legendary Passo del Mortirolo to go over today. They are on the Trevigno as we speak. They have entered the circuit past Africa, into the valley, over Trevigno, and then over the Passo del Mortirolo and back into Africa again. The climb back in. It could all change today. Gianni Fiali is the rider here, waiting, because Gartelli, his team leader, is coming up behind him. This is the situation. If you're joining us on Eurosport International, there was a breakaway. Jan Bekkelens of Omega Pharma Lotto, Francesco Fiali, who you can see there, Aqua Saponi, Branislav Samalau of Quickstep, Luca Mazzanti of Katusha, Yuri Kritsov of AG2R, Jackson Rodriguez, you can see number 37 on the right-hand side of your screen there, from Androni Decqua Giovanni, William Bonnet, Baybox Bouygues Telecom, Javier Tondo of Cervélo, and Leonardo Duque. This is at the front of the race you've just seen, with Samalau, Rodriguez and Duque. Liquigas was setting a really fierce pace as they went to the bottom of this climb to Trevigno, up on the Santa Cristina Boulevard, where years and years ago, 1994, Miguel Indurain blew to pieces and let Marco Pantani away out of his grasp when he was in sight of winning a third Giro d'Italia in a row, and it all went to bits here. Well, today it's Stefano Gartelli who's launched himself out of the front of the peloton to try and bring back the rest of these breakaway riders. Francisco Fiali, his teammate, is up the road. He's waiting for him now as they go over the top at Trevigno. Very nasty descent here for our three remaining men in the breakaway. Today could be the day. If you're joining us on International, those of you who've been on British Eurosport 2 or Eurosport 2 will forgive us for just a little second as we just recap the route today. For the first half of it, up to Odolo, it was pretty much flat, 97 kilometers or so. Then the rise up, the steady climb up to Africa, plummet down to the bottom of the climb to Trevigno, and that's where we've just gone over the top now. It's not too wicked a descent, 14% maximum here as Gartelli links up with Fiali. A very difficult and fast descent off the Trevigno into the valley at the bottom at Valtellina. And then they pass almost silently onto the Mortirolo. You wouldn't know it was there until they're on it. That is a climb now that has passed into legend. We've already had some journalists, Rupert Guinness from Australia, watching us on Eurosport World, who's been saying, I was here the first time they came over the Mortirolo, and I just could not believe how steep it was, and neither could the riders. They're almost there, but it could be make or break day for Cadel Evans or Ivan Basso today as Gartelli goes over the top. Gartelli's really going for it today, Sean. He's got the bit between his teeth. You see that look on his face?
Yes, and I think also the amount of classement, he's up there in that classement as well. He was just a place of ahead of Tondo. He's in 6th place on the mountain classmen, so I think that's the reason he's been riding, you know, really very, very fast on this one, to try and get up to the riders out front, catch as much riders out front and take the maximum points, and go on from there, and you know, as we go on to the stage, just mark up more. And you know, the mountain jersey could be something that he's thinking about, also the stage of course, but the mountain jersey is one at the moment which he could really move up in today.
Branislav Samalov is the rider here, Belarusian. And the two riders ahead of him in the whites, Jackson Rodriguez in the red. It is Leonardo Duque. Still, Valerio Agnoli works on the front here. And Sean, are Liquigas doing too much too soon is the question.
Well, that is the big question, and you know, it's so difficult to know. Do they know they're safe? And I suppose they have to, you know, just take up the race early and make it very difficult. You know, just tire everybody out over a longer time. And on this climb, they have, you know, really just taken from the start. And as we go on to the Mortirolo, they'll, you know, just do it once again and really try and make everybody suffer. And I think that's what you know, Arroyo and the race leader will be concerned about, that it will be, you know, the pace very, very high over a long period, and will he be able to last in there? We see a number of days ago on the Zoncolan he lost quite a bit of time, and it was much the same situation. The Liquigas really just pushed it on at a real fast pace, and he paid for it. And you know, will we see that situation again? That's what the tactic, part of the tactic of the Liquigas team is today.
Interesting, isn't it, to watch these two riders, same team, different lines on the way down. On. Says Gartelli is pushing Fiali on faster. You can see him almost yelling at Fiali to get going. The rider who is being pegged back here is Luca Mazzanti. Mazzanti on the descent, putting on the rain jacket just to keep himself warm. He looks like a fairly spent man to me. This is the descent of the Trevigno. I told you it was hard, didn't I? Oh, you make a mistake here, you pay for it. There's spots of rain on the camera as well, but just as we think it might get difficult, the sun breaks out. You try flying down here at 60 kilometers an hour. And Branislav Samalov is definitely not going to try going down here at 60 kilometers. Look at this! Oh, Stefano Gartelli has almost caught the Branislav group. This is terrific descending. Unfortunately, we're going to miss it just for the moment. You're looking back at the Liquigas train, who are on the descent, or were on the looking back at them. This is Gartelli and Fiali on the descent from Trevigno. I tell you what, there'll be a lot of moto cameramen wishing they hadn't volunteered for this job. Some of these motorcycles will find it hard to stay out of the way of the bicycles today. They are going for it, Leonardo Duque and Jackson Rodriguez here. And Samalov is off the back of these two, doesn't like it one bit. There are lots of wet patches on the road, and you don't want to get caught out on this one. Just look at the drop on the right-hand side here. And as Sean and I were saying, we were just away on the break. Oh, rain. As we were saying away on the break, you go off the side here on that descent to the Trevigno, and that's it for the day. You are not coming back. You're just going to have to hope that that rain is not going to arrive on this slope any time in the next 5 minutes, as Leonardo Duque, good sprinter. And sometimes, Sean, the sprinters make some of the best descenders, don't they? And largely because they have to make up time on descents.
Yes, they get a lot of practice getting dropped on the climbs and trying to get back into the group or get back into the bunch on the descent. So they have a career of practice, and you know, right through maybe from the earlier days when they start, and then when you go on to the professional ranks, if you're in there for a number of years, as a sprinter, you're definitely going to get a lot of practice. And bike handling as well, of course, the sprinters, they can, you know, handle the bike so well, and it's always 99% of the sprinters are all very good ascenders. 1
minute and 5 seconds is the gap between these two here. Jackson Rodriguez in the white and Leonardo Duque in the red. Oh, nasty corner too. Just look at that. Can you imagine flying around that straight into the Armco barrier? Different bike riders, different lines, different techniques. Gartelli here with Fiali, his teammate. He was pushing Fiali on. He was having a right go at him, saying he wasn't going fast enough. As my tandem partner from Team Wiggle Tandem, Jez Hastings, is saying, crazy descending. Watch and learn, young man. Watch and learn. Jackson Rodriguez goes past Duque. It's one switchback after another. They get to the bottom of this climb into Maso de Valentina, and they straight into the Mortirolo. There's no let up now at all. Oh, Fiali and Gartelli get around the corner. They're gaining. This is further back in the field. Remember, the breakaway started with Bacalans, Fiali, Samalau, Mazzanti, Kritsov, Rodriguez, Bonnet, Tondo and Duque. And only Rodriguez and Duque are out ahead here. Sean, how much of an advantage is it for Stefano Gartelli to have Francesco Fiali with him here? I wouldn't have thought it's that much of an advantage on a descent like this.
Well, we can see here there are sections where it levels off a bit, and it does help if you have a good descender as well. He can take it down the descent, and you just follow here. And in the flatter sections, it's a little bit of an advantage. But on the descent, it's not like on the flat road where it's much greater than to get a rider to take you along. It's a much bigger advantage. But he's doing a good job here, and Gartelli is just going to stay with him for as long as possible, and see what he can do on the next climb, because as you said, when we get down to the bottom of this one, we're into the climb of the Mortirolo just immediately, and if he can continue on for a number of kilometers, that'll be the most important thing for Gartelli, that he can do that.
Not that many crowds up on this climb, because they're all saving themselves for the Mortirolo. It's always massively well supported. Gartelli and Fiali are doing a fantastic job. They've taken another 10 seconds out of the guys ahead of them. 55 seconds of a gap now. I'm not so sure that Gartelli doesn't want this stage. Full stop. He may want to bring himself up in the mountains classification. 25 points on offer today, and Matt Lloyd, the Australian, under real pressure today, because with 25 points to play for, Matt Lloyd only had 29 to start with, so difficult for Matt Lloyd to stay in that green jersey, but you never know. More to the point, what is happening behind in the peloton? This is great, spectacular stuff to watch, but in the peloton, they're just going to be making their way down as cautiously as possible. The real fireworks for those guys will start on the next climb, so this is just one phase of the race we're looking at here. I think we've seen this one already. Just a comparable corner. Fiali and Gartelli in line abreast, whereas Rodriguez and Duque are separated, and Rodriguez is pulling out a few meters. It's Eiberger at the back here, the Austrian national champion. Should be quite good at this stuff, probably a little bit too technical. Tell you what, I'll have a stretch and take my hands off the bars. Rather you than me, Stefano. This is a pretty dangerous descent, Sean, isn't it?
Yes, it is a dangerous one. As we've seen, a lot of the corners, very, very tight and very dangerous. And luckily for the riders that the rain is not here, because we see, at the finish at the moment it's raining here, and so they're getting away, I think, lightly. There's a little bit of wet patches, damp patches, but if it was pouring rain on this one, it would be so treacherous.
You certainly would. Not good at all. Jeremy Hastings has written back in saying, yes, David, I'm watching and learning, but on a tandem we'll both take the same line. That's true. I hadn't really looked at it that way.
Well, on the tandem, it might be the same line. If you slide out on the rear.
Yeah, you never know. There's been a couple of occasions where Jeremy and I haven't been in the same line going around the corner. 52 seconds for Gartelli and Fiali. Just while we're looking down on the top, I just will give us a self-plug. A lot of people have asked us if you want to follow what Jeremy and I are doing on the tandem. It's Team Wiggle Tandem. You can follow it on www.teamwiggletandem, all one word, .co.uk. There we are. So plug over. 52 kilometers to go. 49 seconds. Gartelli eating into that lead being established by Jackson Rodriguez. Duque is trying to catch him now. Rodriguez is up ahead. Not far. And off the bottom of the descent they go. Into Maso di Valtellina. And cobblestones greet them. That's wonderful. Fantastic shot. Well done to all the moto bikes as well, and the cameramen on that. Not easy. What a day we've got in prospect now as we come into the final quarter of today's stage in the Giro d'Italia. It's stage 19, 195 kilometers in total. How much will that have taken out of the legs of some of the rivals as Liquigas? My word, Gartelli's almost got them. How much will that distance have taken out of the main rivals, the main protagonists for this year's Giro d'Italia, with Liquigas setting a pretty fierce pace. Vialli doing a fine job for Gartelli. Hops the bike over the little jump. Gartelli's wonderful bike handling skills Gartelli has. And they're onto the main road now. Duque just takes a little break. He'll know they're coming up behind. Whew. Time to draw breath, folks. Live shots on stage 19 of the Giro d'Italia with the pink jersey of David Arroyo. Maybe a little nervous because he's at the front of his group of riders from Caisse to Pan. They're still pushing the pace on Liquigas, Sean. There's only got 3 riders up ahead, and then immediately David Arroyo's got them covered. He's right on the rear wheel of the last Liquigas man in the line, Vincenzo Nibali, but he's only got 2 other riders with him.
Yes, well, you have to stay up front, and for the race leader Arroyo, you have to stay close to the Liquigas main Basso, of course, and on the descent we've just seen here, you know, stay very much to the front, because if you hang a bit too far off, some little thing happens, somebody slide out and there's a crash, and you can get caught up there. It would be a major disaster. And as we can see, he's just to the rear of the Liquigas riders with 2 teammates in his wheel, and it's going to be it's the moment now we'll see in the next climb, the Mortirolo, if he can hang in there. This is where I think we're going to see the big action of the day, and Liquigas are going to continue on. They have to at the moment. They've taken it up, and now it's just keep it going here and see how long they can last on the next climb of the Mortirolo, which is 12 kilometers, and the percentage, it's just a real steep one, and one of the most difficult climbs of the Giro, if not the most difficult.
There's a lot of people say it is actually, in the peloton this is, saying it's actually harder than the Zoncolan. We saw what happened on the Zoncolan the other day. The favourites got blown to, well, not just the favourites, the entire peloton got blown to pieces. The only 2 riders who could stay together for most of it were Ivan Basso and Cadel Evans. And then when Ivan Basso pressed the loud pedal, it was Evans right on the limit, but he fought back in the Plan de Corones time trial to gain those precious seconds over Ivan Basso, 28 of them. Cadel Evans saying in the papers, every single second counts in this year's Giro d'Italia, and I think he's right. Valerio Agnoli still doing work on the front. Sylvester Schmidt, the Polish super climbing domestique, if you're French. I've got to say, I've had a couple of emails saying they're not domestiques, they're gregarios, because it's Italian. It means the same thing, worker. Go on, son, chase back on. Jan Bekkelens makes the rear wheel of Branislav Samalau. You can see Gartelli talking to his director sportif, saying, how far back are they? How far back are they? Am I safe? Can I go? And there was a definite indication of, well, we're not that safe yet. They're still pushing on. 31 seconds separates this group of 4 riders then from the 2 riders in front. Duque and Jackson Rodriguez, both Colombians. Arroyo in the all pink. He must be wondering what's going to happen in the next 15 kilometers. How much will that be playing on his mind, Sean, that in the next, say, 5K, everything could change for him. His whole life could change, because people might realize that he's not liable to be toppled.
Yes, but when you look at you know, the palmarès of the race leader Arroyo, you know, he's been in there for what I think is about 9 years roughly, and he has had some good results, and some good results in the big stage race where he's finished in the top 10, but you know, he hasn't won a lot of very big races. A stage in the Vuelta, and then last year I think he finished about 10th or 11th in the Giro, a place ahead of Lance Armstrong actually, and somewhere around there. It's a different situation, a total different situation. With the yellow jersey, it just brings so much pressure on your shoulders. You know, the press and all of that after each stage, the start of the stage this morning, but on the climbs today, like, this is where it's going to be really tested, and when you have to start marking riders and when you have to start controlling big riders when they go into the attack, I don't think he'll be able to do that. His only hope is that he can, you know, keep his rhythm, keep a few teammates with him on the climb from Caisse to Pang, and of course we see Jennison. He's one of the ones who was one of his better men on the big climbs. He's gone. He stopped today, so it's going to weaken it a bit. But there is other riders there, and you know, he was the rider that came to this race, and really he wouldn't have been the favourite. It was Bruschi going to be the man for the team who was going to do the general classement, and here he is. He's still leading, and it's just been an unbelievable Giro form till now. How long can he continue? That is the question. And if he gets through today, well, then it will be a real surprise to a lot of people, and he will immediately become a danger man to a lot of the other big favourites. And if he can hang in there and keep the jersey with a minute and a half today, well, then everybody else, Basso, Evans, they're all going to be really worried about him for tomorrow's stage, because then the confidence will be zooming if he gets through today and holds on.
The next 15 kilometers may define David Arroyo's professional life. He has had 2 top 10s in the Giro d'Italia. Here he is getting a couple of energy gels from Vasily Kirienka, one of his super domestiques. Putting them in the back pocket, like SIS gels actually, putting them in the back pocket. He'll need them at some point. He's had 2 top 10s in the Giro, 1 top 15 in the Tour de France, but he's always had to work for other riders. He's always been a very good climber and a very strong rider. But I don't think that in a million years he expected to be coming to the foot of the Passo del Mortirolo wearing a pink jersey. If you can climb the Mortirolo in sight of some of the biggest stars of the last 5 to 10 years, then he will have a really good chance of hanging on to that pink right the way to the end. Beautiful little cobbled streets. That's just a prelude. They won't be even looking at the architecture. They won't even be appreciating it. They'll be riding up the gutters in the middle of the road. There we are. Stay away from that cobbled surface. Jan Berkelens is at the back. A young rider from Omega Pharma Lotto, winner of the Tour de l'Avenir. He stuffed up the Under-23 World Championships in the same year, unfortunately, for riding with the Belgians. Valerio Agnoli is still pushing along at the front. Schmidt is clearly the man to be doing most of the work on the slopes of the Mortirolo. Remember, the breakaway is just starting the climb. 37, 38, 39. It's still ticking away. Duque and Rodriguez start. This is where we'll start seeing the crowds. Fiali's doing a fine job, Sean.
Yes, he's done a very good job, and you know, we're looking at it there on the descent. He was, you know, descending very well, and Gartelli just allowed him to do it. And you know, we can see the way they came down off the descent, because the riders who were out in front, Samalu and Bacalans, they were on the descent, but they seemed to just go through them and leave them, but they managed to get back into the Gartelli group. So Fali is really doing a good job on that little bit of a flat section we had there before we got on to this final climb, the Mortirolo. He's at doing a magnificent job, and it's going to, you know, it's going to count a lot for Gartelli to have him there just to get him through that. And now the question is, how long can he last with him? How far up the Mortirolo can he take him? Because the train, the Liquigas train, is really getting into motion.
Down to the 45 kilometers, still 45 kilometers to go for the peloton, and that's Javier Tondo at the back of this group as they go through, and it's nowhere near all the peloton, is it? This is where all the favourites are, though, at the moment. 3 Rabobank riders, so Volker Mollema is in there. My apologies, Matt Rendell correcting me. Naturally, Jackson Rodriguez is not a Colombian, he's a Venezuelan. Sean's nodding.
It looks the same.
All the big favourites are still in this group. Charlie Vigelius just ahead of Richie Porte, who's hanging on. How well will Richie Porte go now? There's a little gap already beginning to form. Rigoberto Urán is the man just hanging on the back of the main group. Already 4 riders slipping off the back as Gartelli is by himself now on the slopes of the Mortirolo. Volker Mollema just sitting behind Marco Pinotti. Pinotti it was, in fact, when we spoke to him, saying that this is harder than the Zoncolan, this climb. Little gaps already appearing. David Arroyo hanging on to the coattails of Vincenzo Nibali. Behind him, Michele Scarponi in the white. You can just see his front wheel there. And then Alexander Vinokurov in the blue colours of Astana. You just see him coming around the corner, followed by Cadel Evans. Evans in a red jersey, remember. Don't go looking for the World Champions jersey. He's wearing the points leaders jersey, red with black shorts. Gartelli wants to join the list of riders who've gone over the top of the Mortirolo first. We first came here in 1990. Luis Sierra was the man who went over the top first, and he won the stage into Africa that day. Franco Chioccioli in 1991 won into Africa, the fastest ascent of the Mortirolo. The record still held by the late Marco Pantani, 42 minutes. Whatever you think of Marco Pantani, that's a hell of a fast climb. It's Sylvester Schmidt who's now got to the front of this. Little gaps appearing, and look who's being distanced. It's Damiano Cunego. Schmidt is just so good at this, isn't he, Sean? Point him in something that goes upwards and he's just in his element.
Yes, he is, and you know, we've seen him do it so many times in the past, and you know, he's in the last number of days, I think he's getting better in this race. The last week he's just really got so impressive, and he's into his usual here, where he just sets an infernal pace, and we can see the riders that are, you know, really suffering at the moment. He's going to really blow this. If he can keep this for a number of kilometers, he will really blow this leading group, what's left of the leading group apart.
He will just blow it to pieces. There's Richie Porte. He's just going to have to climb his own way up now. There's nobody with him to help him this time around, Sean. He's had Chris Anker Sorensen with him in the past. He's had Nicky Sorensen, but he's just by himself now. Richie Porte, another day, hard day in the saddle for him. David Arroyo climbing with just one man now. Urán sitting in front of him. So in fact it was Javier Sandio, I would think, who'd got distanced But Uran, very good climber. I saw him, he did a very good time trial on the Plan de Corones. Well, this is a big ride by Stefano Gartelli. Impressive, Sean, isn't it, for a man who won the Giro d'Italia 10 years ago?
Yes, it is impressive, and considering that he lost a lot of time a number of days ago in one of the mountain stages, it looked like that, you know, he was going to have difficulty in this Giro, putting in an elite performance, and you know what a way he's turned it around. Came back and won the time trial, and you know, just be able to get away there today because the pace was really, you know, quite high when he went off, and you know, pulling out night adventures, as we can see, you know, over 2 minutes. There's no hanging about at all in the bunch since he had left the bunch of the big favourites, and he's, you know, at the pulling out a very strong adventure at the moment.
David Arroyo still there. What, about 10 bike lengths off the front at the moment, as Sylvester Schmidt sets the pace, but Arroyo looking tired. How long, I wonder, before we get that close camera shot just ahead of him and you see that haunted look in his eyes. I wonder if he'll ever be that way. Basso looking calm, looking collected at the moment. He's got Schmidt to do the work with him. On the inside of him, on the steepest part of the bend, goes around Vincenzo Nibali. Just look at that. Nibali sat in the saddle to go around that tightest part of the bend. On a hairpin, clearly, if you want to take the path of least resistance, you go around the farthest part of the bend. You turn on the tight line, and yeah, it may be shorter, but it's a lot steeper. And Nibali didn't even get out of the saddle, he just sat there. Schmidt leads Basso, leads Nibali, then Scarponi, then Kieselowski. That's interesting. Robert Kieselowski looks like he's putting some time into Richie Porte today. He's 6:48 down, but he seems to be hanging with the big boys up at the front, whereas Porte is slipping gently off the back, Sean.
Yes, and we see Porte there, and you know, he was slipping a little bit off the back. Will he get into the rhythm of it? That is the question. Kieselowski, you know, will he have to do some of the gregario work later on the climb? But that's going to be the difficult position for him in the team. He might have to do a lot of that pulling along for Basso and Nibali when Schmidt has finished his job here. So that will, you know, give that will be the problem for him. But if he can just sit in this group, well, then, you know, he's in a real good position, and in that young general class and with the young competition, he could cause problems for Porte today.
Good. 6:48 sounds like a lot, but not if you blow to pieces on the Mortirolo. Remember, they've still got to go down the other side and then climb up to Aprica again. Stefano Gartelli all by himself. Always comes into this race in good shape. Some years better than others. Schmidt looks over his shoulder to see what damage he's doing, I think, to everybody else. Sastre's hanging in there, Sean. He's at the back of that front group that Schmidt is pacing. And looking better than we've seen him last time. He's managed to stay with them at the lower slopes of the climb, which is not something we've seen for a while with Sastre.
No, it's the normal is that we see him a bit further off in the beginning of the climb, and then making up ground as we get further up the climb. It's good if you can, you know, stay in there and stay with the favourites, because then you haven't got to make the effort to get back in there and to catch up with the favourites. So it'll be interesting to see if Sastre, you know, if he could be after, you know, recovering a bit, getting into the rhythm of the race, because he had a very difficult earlier part of the race, well, the flat stages, and I think it's marked him a bit. But now we have had, you know, a number of mountain stages. It's very possible a rider like that, he can ride his way into the climbing, and when he gets a number of difficult stages, it just gets better.
Looks like Arroyo's by himself now, Sean. Just riding by himself. This answers your question about Kieselowski. There's Porte. So I thought it was Kieselowski. I'm not sure it is now. Looking at the front, it might be Del Antonio. And apologies if it is. We didn't see much of him. To be fair, I was concentrating on Sylvester Schmidt. Here is Stefano Gartelli. Cadel Evans is still in this group, as Fiali has been picked up by this leading group of riders, being driven on by Liquigas once again. Sastre, a real pure climber, hanging in here, as does Jean Gadret. Rigoberto Urán is still riding then with David Arroyo. And looks like Maurizio Ardila from the Rabobank squad just ahead of them. The seconds are slowly ticking away. It looks as though he's being distanced a little bit here, David Arroyo. And more than a little bit at the moment. If they really turn up the wick here at the front, it could be very, very difficult for the pink jersey. He has to dig in. He has Rigoberto Urán and Ardila for company. What is the gap? It's not so bad, Sean. Not so bad at all.
No, he's hanging in there, and if he can stay with Ardila, you know, he's a good climber. He will be steady on the climb, but you know, will keep going. He's an older climber, and that will be the important thing for Arroyo. If he can stick with riders like that. Urán also a good climber, so if he can, you know, if he can just stay with those riders. But we can see Basso just wants to up it again and taking it up very early, which is a surprise. You'd not expect Basso the one to take it up. You know, you'd expect some of the other riders to do that, but Basso, he just wants to, you know, set his pace there, as we see Sastre having problems following immediately when Basso turns up the pace a bit.
Well, that's answered one question. Is Sastre in better shape today? No. It appears that he's struggling a little. Basso gets to the front. Now it's down to the same people we've seen before. Basso leads Gartelli. Oh, it's tortuously steep. 12.8 kilometers in length, the maximum ramps going up to 18% after 4.5 kilometers, and then it just grinds all the way up to the top. It was Luis Sierra in 1990 who came over the top of this climb first. It was followed in 1994 by Marco Pantani, who holds the record for the ascent of this climb, 42 minutes. Basso's group is at 142 from Gartelli today. He may well be after the glory of going over the Mortirolo in the stage win. But these are the protagonists for the overall, as Basso once again piles on the pressure. Carlos Sastre by himself now, just dropping a little off the back. Oh, just look at the gradient. Gartelli out of the saddle, just turning away the pedals. To be able to maintain a rhythm is the biggest possible achievement you can here. Basso leading once again. It looks to me as though Evans is a little under pressure. There's a half a bike length there, and Scarponi looked the only man close enough at the moment. Still fighting is Sastre. What do you think, Sean? Evans a little bit under pressure here?
Difficult to know what Evans' real style of riding. You know, he fights a lot with the bike, a lot of movement there, and I find it very difficult, you know, to see if he is struggling. And but Basso, you know, he just wants to push it on, and we can see that, you know, at the very moment I think it slows a bit. Basso just, you know, ups the pace, and we see Vinokurov starting to lose ground here. Gadret also losing contact. And of course, you know, with Scarponi here, he's joined up with his teammate Jackson Rodriguez.
Vinokurov, yes, off the back here. Very, very steep indeed. Evans gets out of the saddle and digs in, then gets back in again. Two Liquigas riders, well, there was two. He's gone. Rodriguez is gone already. Evans is fighting here, really fighting at the steeper slopes, and Basso is the man who clearly revels in these conditions, if you could call it reveling. Evans just seems to be pacing himself at the moment. He hasn't got that twisted, tortured look on his face yet. Nibali, Evans, Scarponi, Basso. He's losing a little bit of ground. A half a bike length here, another half there. Back at the front of the race, it's Stefano Gartelli 40 kilometers to go for our leader. This is a truly wonderful performance by Gartelli, who launched his attack at the bottom of the climb at Trevigno. Evans is really digging in. It's got that characteristic look now, hasn't it, of him out of the saddle. And Basso sitting in it. Basso will be very happy. He's got Scarponi and Nibali with him. And Evans gets back up to the wheel just as the gradient dips very slightly. Scarponi's a fighter, isn't he, Sean? He really battled hard on the Zoncolan, and today he seems to be a little better at the moment.
Yes, he seems to be. When he's taking the turns on the front with Basso, it tells us that he's okay for the moment. But we see the other day as well, he was doing that in the earlier part, and then he paid the price as Evans again, lose a little bit more, 5 or 6 bike lengths certainly there for Evans, and they will be made aware of that, Basso, and he would just try and keep the pressure on, and put Evans really in difficulty. And we can see 39.7 kilometers from the top of the Mortirolo. We have 32.6 to the finish, so there's quite a lot of difficult road ahead to get to the top of this one.
Certainly is. David Arroyo in the company of Maurizio Ardila. Ardila's just sitting behind him. Pinotti looks like he's in this group. Sorry about the picture breakup. The most important thing to realize is the pink at the front here is David Arroyo. Interesting to see where Richie Porte is. I think he might be in this group here, actually, just at the back. Evans slipping back another few bike lengths. And there's still a way to go. Basso is setting the pace of this very, very steep climb. And Evans, the shoulder's beginning to droop. That's not a good sign. Tries to get into the wheel of Branislav Samalau, but that's not going to help him. One minute then is the group of Basso up the road from David Arroyo. 2:27 was the gap this morning when they started for Basso. He's showing his intentions here. Leader of the race at 2:19. Remember, that's Gartelli. Basso was at 2:27 this morning. Porte at 2:44. Evans at 3:09. Sastre at 4:41. Nibali 4:53. Vinokurov 5:12. Scarponi 5:24, and then it was 9:21 down to Cunego. Anybody below Scarponi really doesn't have a realistic chance here. And it looks as though the battling Evans is just conceding ground, wheel spin by wheel spin at the moment. Very slowly. The 28 seconds or so that he gained on the Plan de Corones is going to slip away from him as Ivan Basso and Vincenzo Nibali, along with Michele Scarponi, put on the pressure at the front. Although, to be frank, Sean, Nibali's not doing much because there's not much he can do.
No, I think Nibali is on the limit at the moment, but there's probably a tactic as well when you look at the race route. When we get to the top of this one, there's about 90 and 20 kilometers of a descent off the Mortirolo, so I think Nibali will be needed for there. And then as you go into the final, that final climb of the day, which is about 13.9 kilometers to the finish in Africa, but not a majorly difficult one, and that's where Nibali could do a lot for Basso. If he's still out there in front with him, he could set a very good pace there. I think Nibali on the real steep sections under difficulty, but tactic of the team within Liquigas, they want to keep him there, and that's why we see it's Basso who is keeping the pace high at the moment.
Evans, I don't know, Sean, but it would appear to me, it would seem logical that Evans just trying to limit his losses at this particular point, thinking if I can just hold back a little bit of energy for the last climb, I'm going to need it with 2 men up the road from the same team. even if I am suffering at this point, I've got a descent to get back on, and then I've got a slightly less difficult climb where I can perhaps do something.
It's difficult if you allow the three leaders that we have at the moment, two from the Liquigas and Scarponi, if they get away from you, like they're going to, on the climb itself, they're going to pull out gradually, and on the descent is going to be the danger one of the Mortirolo, because we know Nibali's descending ability, and he's going to descend at a very fast rate, and he will try and take Basso with him. I think that will be the tactic today, and we can see Nibali, he did take it up there when it's a little bit easier, the sections are not as steep, he's doing a bit, and if he's going anyway, close to Basso's pace, I think they will try and keep him there with Basso, and Basso would probably just knock it off a fraction to keep him with him to get down the descent and go on to the final climb of the day. And Evans's problem is when you lose, when you lose the wheel in front of you, lose the big favourites, and you lose three men who are really ready to get up there for the general classement to win the race, it's going to be impossible for Evans to come back on his own.
He has had to fight pretty much on his own all the time. Basso has always had somebody around him until the final. Ivan Basso putting on the hurt. Look at this. Evans trying to limit his losses. Branislav Samalau has been sitting in his wheel, so he can't have been going too fast. And look at what's happening behind. If Alexander Vinokurov and clearly Carlos Sastre, I mean, Sastre we know could ride better at the back end of a climb than at the front end of it sometimes. He's going past Evans. Got to try and hang in this group, Sean, now. Evans has got to try and stay here.
Yes, this is it's going to be very important for Evans that he has to, latch on to this group of Vinokurov, Sastre. If he cannot, get into this one, then he's in major trouble, because it tells us that he's really suffering, and this will be the, a real good group for him if they can keep on riding. If Sastre gets into the rhythm, as he does a lot when he gets further up the climb, he seems to improve after a number of kilometres, and it would be really good for Evans, really important that he can just get onto this group and stay in this group. Then he will limit his losses, and of course for the descent, and as you go into the final climb, which is over 13 kilometres to finish, if you're with a couple of riders like Vinokurov, he would be very strong, and that would certainly limit their losses, but if you find yourself on your own, well, then you're in no man's land, and the minutes are going to tick away.
David Arroyo is doing a good job. I mean, really, there's no teammates around him. He's Evans-like in his loneliness, and just having to ride his own race to try and limit some loss. Vincenzo Nibali is the man who can, as Sean was saying, take a little bit of the pacemaking when it flattens out, relatively speaking, just a little bit, and then Basso comes through. Scarponi still hanging in there, close to the rest of the moment. And I'm a little concerned about the descent now. It's not a dry road, as you can see. And behind these three men, well, we know Nibali can really descend fast, but behind, Cadel Evans is going to have to try and descend at speed, as is this man here, Carlos Sastre. But Evans and Vinokurov, especially from this group, are very good descenders. Gadre in this group as well. Jean Gadre, the other man who's in here. And Evans seems to be doing okay at the moment, but he's latched onto the wheel of Carlos Sastre. Adila's doing a nice job for our Caisse de Pan leader here.
Yes, he must be going to sign for Caisse de Pan next year.
I would have thought so. Two Liquigas and an Androni rider still up at the front, and they're almost upon Stefano Gartelli. Shows the pace that obviously Gartelli has knocked off some of the pace, but Basso especially has taken a real push, and they're closing the gap. Oh, Evans is slowly slipping down the order in this group. Vinokurov takes up the pacemaking. Now in the wheel of Jean Gadre, the French cyclocrosser who has turned mountain specialist, especially in the Giro d'Italia. Bravo, Gartelli. Enlivened the stage today. Just waiting for the others. The question is, will he be able to stay with them?
And that's the question. Did he knock it off when he realised that the race was really on, and made aware that there was a small group coming up? And for the mountain classement, if he has still some power left, he could just hang on to this group and take the maximum points here, which I think is 10 on the top of this one, and roughly he should have about 23 at the moment. So he will move up in that classement quite a lot. But the question is, has he really given too much here, Gartelli? And with Basso really setting a very strong pace, he might have difficulty hanging in here.
58 seconds is the gap. Back down to David Arroyo. Well, the note 118 now. It's gone out a bit more.
Yes, it can't be, because we have this group of Evans and Evans, Sastre in between, and Arroyo is, if I'm right here, Arroyo is chasing just a bit further down on this line, so it's well over. It should be well over the minute for, as we can see, 1:58.
It's gone out again. Still a good ride by the Spaniard. I don't think he ever in a million years thought he'd live with Ivan Basso or Michele Scarponi as climbers. Scarponi beginning to look like he's suffering. Sastre takes up the pacemaking once again. Evans is battling to stay in here. The headlights illuminating the sculpted calves of the Australian. He is a man with plenty of muscle, and now just losing a bike length to Jean Gadret. He's got to fight to stay there. He's an immensely strong rider. Started his career as a mountain biker. Well, actually started as a road rider. He used to share a club and go training with Matthew Keenan, the Australian commentator, often works for the ASO. And then moved on to mountain biking. Gartelli can't stick with it. There's the question answered. Then moved on to mountain bikes. He was a World Cup winner when he rode for Cannondale, and then moved to the road. Made a massive impact in the Giro, where he wore the leader's jersey on his first attempt, but collapsed on the, I think, third to last day. He's grown a lot since then. He's now the current world champion, and he's got back up to the wheel of Jean Gadret. Gadret, another man with a penchant for the off-road. As a cyclocrosser. And David Arroyo left by himself. Basso, again, he's got that killer look on. He was the winner into Africa back in 2006. He was wearing the pink jersey at the time. Vincenzo Nibali looks across to him, just one of those looks from under the eyebrows, saying, my word, boss, you can go. Scarponi, I just think he's pleased to be able to concentrate on his own rhythm. If you start looking at other riders, Sean, as Nibali has a little bit of trouble just hanging in there at the moment as Basso turns up the pace. He's now putting the hurt on Scarponi and his teammate Nibali. Is it a good thing to focus on other riders in your group, or do you just focus on your own climbing?
Well, you just concentrate on your own climbing, and you just look at the rider in front of you, and yes, depending on what's happening. If you're really on the limit and you're going into the red, well, then you have to knock it back a bit and allow that gap to appear. And if you're on a steep section, you have to do that, and hopefully that will ease off a little bit, and then you can come back very gradually. So it all depends, how you're feeling. And the riders, they know themselves so well, like from experience, from so many years, they know exactly what to do. And if you're getting close to the top of the last kilometre and a half, there you can really dig in and just hang on. But at the moment they're almost 4.5 kilometres from the top at this moment, so it's a long ways, and time wise it's going to be a long time before they make it to the summit of this one.
It won't be very long, Sean, before Ivan Basso is riding himself into the virtual pink jersey on the road, because he's got about 2 minutes or so on David Arroyo. He started just 2:27 down today. Cadel Evans has been slipped off the back, but he's managed to get into a group with Vinokurov and Sastre. Ivan Basso still... we haven't seen him climbing like this, have we, since the year he won the Giro d'Italia in 2006. He's been out of the sport, as we know, banned for 2 years, came back to Liquigas. He was the man who broke the agreements between the Pro Tour organization and the teams not to rehire people for 2 years after a ban. And that changed the way people were hired and fired. But he certainly has the form now he had back in 2006. Scarponi on the left-hand side of your screen, the right shoulder. 1:46 from Basso to Arroyo. So Arroyo doing a very, very fine job. He's clawed back 10 seconds. Gartelli, meanwhile, is 25 seconds down on Basso and looking like he's beginning to really suffer. That climb of Trevigno must have taken a massive amount out of this veteran rider now, Sean.
Yes, and again, you know, we see the way he went about it there, put in a very big effort. Maybe he was hoping that there would be a little bit of a slowdown back in the main bunch, but you could see that the way the Liquigas were riding, it was you know, highly unlikely it was ever going to happen. Was he, you know, trying to get enough of an advantage and ride on and go for the stage victory, or was he thinking of maybe picking up maximum points, 10 points on this one, and moving up in the mountain classement? That is the question. I think it could have been the mountain classment. The way he went about it, you know, really went very, very fast over that short period he was out in front, and you know, he's paying the price big time now. Where if you take it easy, just follow the group of the Liquigas riders and try and get up this climb with him, he could still pick up some points, and on the final climb of the day there'd be a possibility stage victory. But I think Gartelli is the one who knows what he's capable of doing at the moment, and probably felt that he would not be able to match the Bassos and Scarponis in the climb when they really start going, and he decided just to take the risk and go early.
Our two Liquigas men at the front here are Ivan Basso riding on the front, and Vincenzo Nibali just behind him. In the middle is Michele Scarponi, who have to say is another scrapper in this year's Giro d'Italia. And is there any other sport in the world comparable to this? For spectacle, for scenery, for suffering, for sheer endeavor. It's a sport marked with as many highs as there are lows that we talk about. That is for sure. And Cadel Evans, you saw then, seeing that the little group he was in being distanced by Alexander Vinokurov, just summoned one more effort to go past Jean Gadret and Carlos Sastre to latch onto the wheel of the Kazakh. Man who beat him in Liège, Bastogne-Liège. He knows what a strong rider he is. He had to fight to get on that wheel, but he's got there. Well, you'd have to say Basso is the climber of this year's Giro d'Italia. It's still not all over, though. Evans knows he can fight, he can fight, he can fight. Tomorrow, once again, after this epic stage, we have more mountains to contend with. It just seems to be never-ending for the riders on this year's Giro d'Italia. Another massive stage tomorrow with another finish at Ponte di Legno Tonali. Another mountaintop finish. And if Evans could just hang on in here, or Basso could destroy the opposition as Scarponi takes on an energy gel and just drops a bike length back. Nibali and Scarponi riding side by side. This is the Evans group coming up to the back of Stefano Gartelli. It's just about a minute down. So that shows you that Evans has lost a minute to Basso, Sean.
Yes, and they're still doing okay considering the situation here. I think Evans is not it's not a big disaster at the moment, and he has to try and stay with Vinokurov, as we can see there, when Vinokurov gets a little bit of an easier section, when the percentage is not as great, he's just that strong ride and he keeps on powering, and Evans just making a bit of a sprint to get into the wheel, and that is the important thing, that he can stay. Gadri, of course, also Sastre. So with them four riders, if they can stay together and hold it at a minute, get onto the descent, they're in a good position, because with Basso out front, I know Nibali is going to make a very good descent, but I think he's going to try and keep Basso with him on the descent, so he's limited how fast he can go. Scarponi also not the greatest of descenders, and you're going to have four riders, and I think they will also contribute to the chase, because they all have their interests here in the general classement, and that is the good thing for Evans, for Vinokurov, for Gadre, for Sastre. If they all work well together, they could limit their losses as they go on to the finishing, go on to the final climb of the day, which is a long one but not as steep, 13.9 kilometers. They could limit their losses quite well.
Well, it's not working quite like that at the moment. Alexander Vinokurov, clearly the stronger of the men in this group. Jean Gadre looks over his shoulder to see where Cadel Evans is, but Evans rides up to the wheel of Gadre again. Looked to me as though Gadre just knocked it off a little bit. Allowed Evans to just come back a little bit, because he was eating into that gap of Alexander Vinokurov. Maybe he knows that if they have to work together, maybe he knows that Evans is the better descender, and Gadre could follow him on the way down. Maybe they all know they've got to get to Vinokurov and follow him down. Who knows?
And maybe Gadre is going to BMC next year.
Maybe. It's speculation time, folks. It's true to say, though, that a lot of riders will have to be in discussions before the Tour de France. Wave that motorcycle on set. The commissaire desperate to get the bike away. Oh, this is where the riders just have to watch out. The fans get more and more ardent every year. More and more bizarre costumes at the side of the road. Alexander Vinokurov by himself, though, so the group behind consists now of Gadre, Evans and Sastre. He's putting a decent gap in here, riding for himself, Nashville.
Yes, he is. He's getting into it, getting into the rhythm very well, but I think the section we're on at the moment, it's after easing out a bit, and that's where Vinokurov is at his best, and unfortunately for him also, the others cannot follow, because if they could manage to stay together some way and get onto the descent, it would be a nice group to push on later, but Vinokurov really has the bit between his teeth at the moment, and he seemed to be after getting a second breath here. He's just looks to be going very fast, and I think he's probably eating into the time of Basso out front.
Gadre is doing all the work behind. In the group of three with Sastre and Evans. You can see them when the road straightens out just a little bit. They are just behind. Sastre now is coming through. Oh, Evans has gone. Evans has gone from the group. It's every man for himself now. 20 bike lengths maybe between himself, Evans and Jean Gadre. Meeting his teeth once again is Cadel Evans. 35 kilometers to go for Alexander Vinokurov. Now we're getting the same face that we saw on the Monte Zoncolan now. This is really hurting Cadel Evans. I know everybody in this Giro d'Italia is working hard, but do you know what? I think Cadel Evans has worked harder than anybody else. Maybe with the exception of Michele Scarponi, who's also worked hard. They all look like they're suffering. Nibali just holding back the haunted look in his eyes. He's fighting against it. It's 1:42 back to David Arroyo. Chapeau to the Spaniard. He's doing a great job, Sean. Really good job.
Yes, it's amazing that it's 1:42, because I think we had a bit earlier on, a bit further down we had 146, and then before that 158. So he seems to be coming back, which I find it difficult the way he looks to be climbing here. But again, it depends on what part of the climb they're on. It can be very deceiving the way the riders are moving along. But he's working on it. He's getting a good rhythm here, as we see 150 at the moment. So still not a bad situation. But again, he's in this no man's land, and if he finds himself here on the descent, the long descent, of 19 kilometers, and then go into the final climb of the day, another 13 kilometers, it's going to be very difficult for him to keep that advantage out front of Basso down to the 2 minutes 27, which he has got over them. I cannot see it is going to draw to be much greater.
Alexander Vinokurov. Well, whether you approve of this man's return to racing or not, he is clearly strengthening his position in this year's Giro d'Italia, and he's certainly a man who knows how to suffer, as does Cadel Evans. Looking down, and that is the back of world champion Cadel Evans. This is David Arroyo, and going through his mind will be he will be thinking, I am not going to lose it, I am not going to lose it, I am not going to lose it. With every pedal stroke, he is going to be trying to hang on to that pink jersey. Oh, how demoralizing that now only Cadel Evans can only see Jean Gadret and Carlos Sastre when the road straightens out. For a time, when you go around a bend, you can just see the wheel of the last man, and then suddenly they disappear from view. And every bend you go around, they may only be 25 meters ahead, but you can't see them anymore, and you are truly alone. Oh, the crowd's really loving the battle. Evans gets a sight of them. He manages to look up from the ground. It's almost hypnotic looking down on that tarmac underneath the front wheel. The pain just driving him on.
And the tarmac not looking good at the moment. Very wet for the descent as we get close to the last kilometre of the climb for Basso. Nibali, Scarponi, very wet road, and this is going to be a dangerous descent, a long one, as I said, around them, a little bit over 19 kilometres. The ones who are behind, if you take a bit of risk, you can run into problems, and there's a lot of sections on this one where you have to be careful, and it will be an interesting descent.
Yep, we're just thinking the same thing. The rain is coming down and coating this road with what is essentially a slick passage to oblivion if you're not careful. David Arroyo fights by himself. We'll be seeing a Liquigas team car there and wishing he wasn't. 1 minute and 40 seconds the gap, as Alexander Vinokurov just less than a minute behind Ivan Basso, Nibali and Scarponi. For some reason, I think that I've got a feeling that Vinokurov might well reach these three riders by the time they get to the bottom of this descent. Nibali is going to do his usual job and try and pace Basso down. Basso can pace him up. Nibali is quicker down, but the situation is not great for Basso in terms of descending. Or Scarponi, they don't like it. They simply don't like it when it's wet. 110 down to Sastre from Basso now. Sastre has in his company Jean Gadret. We will see him very shortly. Evans is behind those two riders. So it must be about a 1:30, I would say. Oh, what a spectacle this Giro d'Italia has turned out to be, and there will be thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Australian viewers sitting on the edge of their seat, hoping that Cadel Evans can use some of that great bike handling he has to catapult himself off the top of this mountain and make some inroads into what has happened to him today. It's possible, Sean.
Yes, it's possible. Evans can descend very well, and he has to do it. He has to try and get back to Sastre, which is, just up the road there. And we see Vinokov at 51, Sastre at 110. So there's not a lot between them. Sastre not a good descender, but if Cadel Evans can really just dig deep in these last 2 kilometres and get to the top. But the problem is when you really have to, give it 100%, your descending ability is, not as good as it normally would be. So Evans, he could pay a little bit for that, but that will be the saving of him today. If he doesn't make it back to Sastre, Gadre, and hopefully Vinokurov, then it's going to be a difficult one for him. And I think with Nibali here, he's going to make the descent for Basso and just take him along and not really go as he would like to go, because Nibali is such a great descender. He will be just looking after Basso on this one and trying to get him down to the bottom of this ascent, 19 kilometres, and then go into the final climb of the day, just over 13 kilometres.
Basso, Nibali and Scarponi have got over the top of the Mortirolo. They add their names to the roll call of great climbers who have crested the top of this mountain. It started back in 1990 from Luis Sierra's passage over the top down into Africa, where he won the stage. Marco Pantani holds the record of 42 minutes climbing up here. He dispatched the great Miguel Indurain on the slopes of Trevigno and then went over the top of this mountain. In fact, that Giro d'Italia 1994, he won 2 back-to-back mountain stages. Here comes Alexander Vinokurov. He's taken back another 4 seconds only. Now, he'll get himself into the rhythm, gets a gel down his face as quickly as he possibly can. Evans. Oh, such pain. Such pain. This is a rider who wears his heart on his sleeve. He knows he's got to go down quick, get that wind stopper of some sort, whether it's paper, whether it's plastic, something underneath that jersey. It amazes me that a man in so much pain, as all the riders are, can ever think about things like that, other than just getting to the top. 25 meters to go for Evans, and look at the time gap. We thought it was about 1:30, it's 1:42. That's a huge task for Evans to come back. And Arroyo is almost with him. The pink jersey goes over the top, he's almost with him. That's great riding by David Arroyo. Oh, very tentative by our 3 leading men with 31 kilometers to go. Just look at the terrain. Oh. This is going to be a tricky descent. These are delayed pictures of just how unlikely it is that Basso is ever going to like a wet descent. Vincenzo Nibali waiting for him, looking over his shoulder as he goes round a corner. But the big news while you're away on the break is that this man in your shot here, David Arroyo, has caught and passed Cadel Evans. He went flying down the first part of the descent, past Cadel Evans, who is a good descender. And he's now off into the distance. I don't even think that Evans could see him. Here is Evans by himself. Look, he can't even see Arroyo. Just about, maybe. And that's it. Nibali waiting for Ivan Basso, and Scarponi is there, but Evans is pretty much by himself, almost running out of road completely. Oh! That is such a dangerous descent.
And that's not good for Evans. When you get a bit of a scale like that, you knock it back a bit, and he's not going to, be confident, lose the confidence a bit. And when you do that, you just, slow down a lot. And I think Cadel Evans really suffered on that final kilometres, because Arroyo came to him and went by him and just went on. And when you're really on the rivet for a number of kilometres on the climb, then you're not good on the descent, and that is the problem for Cadel Evans at the moment.
Race Radio is telling us that there's a gap of 2 minutes between the leading 3 riders and David Arroyo. Arroyo doing a fine job of defending. 2:27 is what Basso started the day at. He doesn't like the descents. It's not as tricky, this descent, as the last one, as you can see, but it's very slippery. And Nibali driving things along. Scarponi happy to stay in the wheel here. Arroyo has to do it all by himself. Who is that ahead of Arroyo? Surely that's not them.
Sastre.
Sastre, maybe? Difficult to tell. Sastre and Gadre. Yep.
Good work by Arroyo, because as you say, he's in no man's land there, and if you can just join up with some of the riders out in front, and it's a good job by the pink jersey. Interesting to see now where Vinokurov is in the descent.
He's going to go past him. He's going to go past them. Up the inside of Carlos Sastre, is it? Now Sastre looks at him, sees him coming past, knows it's the pink jersey. Gave him a little bit of a flick there. Goes past Jean Gadre, still wants to try and push the pace. I'm not sure Carlos Sastre will want to try and follow him at that pace. Jean Gadre, well, he's a bit of a brain out gonzo rider sometimes. He'll go with him. But I'm not sure that Sastre is going to enjoy that at all. And like you say, Sean, where is Alexander Vinokurov? Here he goes, look up the inside. Sastre doesn't see him. Whoop! Caused him a bit of a fright there.
He scared him.
He did. What a day this has turned out to be. Well, ride of the day for me has to be, so far, David Arroyo. Vinokurov at 45 seconds. He's coming back on them. And that surely has to be the fact that Nibali has had to wait, Sean, because Basso doesn't like it.
No, we could see that, you know, Nibali was he was floating around the corners, having a look over his shoulder, and Basso not, you know, not confident at all, but you know, it's so important for Basso that he had Nibali there with him just to get him down. And as we get further down here, we can see not as technical at all, and you know, that's where Basso will really benefit from the teammate, because you know, Scarponi also, he will do a bit of riding later on. So if they get, you know, through this the non-difficult section, and when they get to the bottom of this climb and start the final one of the day, that's going to be really, you know, important that the three of them stay together here. And you know, the other situation is, of course, with Arroyo joining up with Sastre and Gadre, hopefully they can stay together as well. And Vinokurov is a little bit in no man's land at the moment.
Well, he's been in no man's land for the last 2 years. I wouldn't worry about it.
Problem is today, if you do a long ride here, you know, all the descent, and then you do the final climb of the day on your own, which is, you know, 13.9 kilometers. Tomorrow, a very difficult day. You're going to pay a little bit for that effort. Where if you have somebody to share the pulling, the pace setting, it's you know, it makes it so much easier for a group of 2 or 3 riders.
Gadre and Sastre, and Arroyo has gone. There he is, up ahead. The pink jersey does not want to give up this accolade of being the top man in the Giro d'Italia. He's clearly taking some risk. We saw him, he went past Cadel Evans. Evans not able to control the bike on one corner, just almost running out of road completely and colliding with a camper van. And fatigue and tiredness just setting in. Oh, he just doesn't like it. Nibali is so conscious of making sure that team leader Ivan Basso makes it down in one piece. They have one more climb up to Africa to go. The gap was 48 seconds back to Alexander Vinokurov. That's the same. The clock keeps ticking. Back to David Arroyo. Is that 56 seconds for Arroyo? Yes. That is an amazing piece of descending. Brilliant stuff by the pink jersey. David Arroyo not willing to give up. Well, Arroyo certainly has thought, well, I'm going to have to take the chances and bank on the fact that Ivan Basso doesn't like it. 23 kilometers to go for the riders at the head of the race. And I tell you what, if Arroyo manages to get back on these, or Vinokurov and Arroyo get back to this group before they climb, hearts will sink in the Liquigas camp. They will have to attack again. 1:18 back to Cadel Evans now from Basso group. Arroyo by himself. He's chosen to be riding that way at the moment. He's caught Vinokurov. Oh, if I had a hat to take, I'd have to have a whole stack of hats to take off for David Arroyo today. Each one for every time. He amazes me today. This is a brilliant ride by a man who's wearing the pick jersey. What else can you say? He's managed to keep it upright. He's managed to keep it quick. And to catch Alexander Vinokurov is no mean feat. Is that Ivan Basso? No, it's not, is it? It's Vincenzo Nibali just relieving the tension. I'm not surprised he feels tense. The whole fate of Liquigas' Giro d'Italia could rest on the next 21 kilometers. And Arroyo pushing on. Vino will get onto that wheel. And surely these two, Sean, now can work together.
Yes, I think he's with a good man. Arroyo has joined up with a strong one. Vinokurov, he's always prepared to ride. And we can see there, the gap 45 seconds back to the back from the three leaders. The interesting thing is we will see in the first number of kilometers as we get to the bottom, very close to the bottom of the descent for our three men out front. I think we see Nibali just descending. He's going to be still very fresh, and he will really push it on. Where Arroyo, Vinokurov have been pushing on the descent, and you can pay for that, as we can see. 46 seconds, and Evans getting it together here and coming back to Sastre. So again, depending on how those are feeling, the three with Gadre, they could also, because we see there, I think Evans was at 180 in the last check, so he's not that far off Arroyo and Vinokurov. So it's really just a matter of how they're feeling now as we get on to the last climb of the day, and if they work well together, the two chasers, Vinokurov, Arroyo.
56 seconds for the group now, with Evans in Gadre and Sastre, and ahead Arroyo and Vinokurov. And it's Arroyo pushing on, as you would expect, but expect now. Whole expectations have changed in the last 20 minutes. And I'm asking myself, Sean, the question, is it the fact that Basso clearly simply did not like to descend as quickly? It's given everybody else the opportunity to capitalize on it, yes. even in the flatter sections.
Yes, I think definitely Basso is not not taking any risk there. Wasn't confident. We could see him in the very beginning of the descent when the corners were very technical, very tight. He just was going around them very, very slowly and not getting a good line at all. So the other ones, have descended well. Considering we see Evans there, really running out of road and getting very close to that camping van, and just pulled himself together, got together, and done a fabulous job, as all the other riders have. Arroyo just did a magnificent descent. Vinokurov as well. He always he's consistent in the descent, wet or dry. He is pretty good. And now we will see a clear picture as we come to the section where it will start, to climb up again to the finish, and that's really, the important. The first couple of kilometers of the climb, we will see if the three out front are really strong. And of course, we have the best men out front, the stronger men on the last climb. Normally they should be the strongest, but there's no guarantee. Maybe Basso was paying a bit for his efforts, because he did put in a big effort on the Mortirolo very earlier on, and you can start paying for that later on.
Under a minute for Cadel Evans. He passes over the line. but it's David Arroyo who is, for me, ride of the day. Looks back over his shoulder. You just saw the replay there, and you would have seen it live to see where Alexander Vinokurov is. Clever riding by Arroyo. He knows he's got to ride with somebody now on the flat. The flick of the elbow goes for Basso. Come on, work with me, work with me. Scarponi goes through to do his things. 43 seconds between this two and the group ahead. Welcome back. Stage 19, the very closing stages, as the gritted teeth and whirling legs of Ivan Basso. The elbow flicks for Scarponi to come through and do some work. Vinokurov not wanting to work with David Arroyo. This is a bit of a disaster for David Arroyo. He's come back to him and said, look, come on, work with me. Arroyo having to do the work himself. Vinokurov saying, no, you go ahead, you go and do it. Well, he knows he's going to get a free ride from him. That's not particularly gracious of the man. Come on, let's work together and close them down. Vinokurov basically saying, I think, hey, that's your job. It's you who wants to win this, Giro. It's not going to help, Sean. 50 seconds is the gap, though. It was 53, and I think Arroyo knows he's got a real battle on his hands now. But there's not that far back to the Evans group, and Evans too was having to do most of the work on the front. Well, Vino's come through now. What's going on here, Sean? A bit of gamesmanship going on, I think.
Well, I don't understand Vinokurov if he's not prepared to ride here, because he's in a position now where he really has to do some bit with Arroyo. I know Arroyo is the race leader, but still, you know, Vinokurov, he can get back into the group of the three leaders out on the road here, and you know, the position for him, he's going to move up maybe a bit in the general class, because Sastre is down there, Evans, of course. And he can, you know, move into a better position, and there's another day to go tomorrow, but I think we will see Vinokurov just riding here. The interesting one is the other chasers, Evans, Gadre, Sastre. Will they be able to come back on the two men here on our screen? That will be vital, because if they make a group of 5, well then it could help a lot. But I think out front still, it's the 3 men out front, the stronger ones, as we get to, you know, this section where it starts to kick up at the moment. You know, the 15k to go, it's really at what, 13 kilometers, I think it starts to go up here. The last climb is just a bit over 13.9 kilometers, I think it is. So
yep, 13.9, yeah.
It starts to, you know, to go up, and that's where we will see the real answers. The men who has, you know, got a little bit of energy left. A lot of those riders in the chasing groups have really, you know, spent their self, because trying to limit their losses on the Mortirolo.
Well, we have never seen David Arroyo ride like this before. Where's he been hiding it, one wonders? The courage, the ability, the descending smooth, fast, even though it was a slick coating of wet on the road. Now we're in the dry again. 39 seconds. That's brilliant. Brilliant. And here come the other 3.
48. So they're all making ground on our 3 leaders, which is surprising. And is the Basso group really tiring? And Basso, of course, you know, he did give a big effort on the Mortirolo. Is he paying the price? We will see in the next number of kilometers will tell the real picture.
It's amazing, isn't it? All coming down to the climb that's least aggressive, the climb that is least difficult on this entire day. They've been over the Trevigno today, where in 1994 a young Marco Pantani dispatched the great Miguel Indurain with a flick of the pedals. We've been over the Mortirolo today, where Luis Sierra first passed over in 1990, to be followed by Coccioli, Pantani, Gotti, Heras and Basso into Africa. And Arroyo grabs a bidon on the way past, and the 3 chasing men, I think, are going to make contact fairly shortly with Arroyo and Vinokurov. They're not that far ahead, you can see them. There they are, there is the pink jersey up ahead of David Arroyo. Carlos Sastre, fellow Spaniard, working with Cadel Evans. Has this man got anything left in the tank? He was really pushing hard. I'm not sure that one of those three is not going to go pop at some point on this last climb. They're almost there, Sean. They're almost a five, a quintet to take on a trio.
Yes, and this is going to be, you know, really a really important moment. If the five of them, they start to, you know, really work together, everybody contribute to the pulling on the front, well, then it will be a huge advantage for those five men. And you know, out front, as we can see, you know, the gap 40 seconds. It's still manageable, and it's just a question of, you know, how much these guys have left. These five now, you know, are they all pretty equal? Have they all got something to contribute here? And that will be the real outcome of it.
Cadel Evans takes to the front with David Arroyo in his wheel. They haven't been able to shed the pink jersey today, and the group is still at 41 seconds. Sastre, Gartelli, who's really come of age in this year's Giro d'Italia, and Alexander Vinokurov make up the five now. Arroyo slips into another gear and then has a look down at the bike. Thankfully no problems, just jumped a little bit under his pedals then, I think, as he went into the little ring. And this is the steepest part of the climb. It ramps up to about 15% here. Oh, Basso not looking so smooth. That elegant riding style looking a bit laboured, Sean.
Yes, it looks a little bit more laboured than we've seen maybe today. But again, you know, the section here, as you said, it kicks up really steep, and everybody, you know, is starting to pay the price at the moment. So yeah, I would not take too much from it. I think the timing, as we can see, 45 seconds at the moment. It was down to 41, 46. So it's, you know, it's starting to grow out a little bit there. And in the next 2 kilometers, I think we will then know if this group is capable of catching up to the three leaders.
The gap for Ivan Basso was 2 minutes and 27 seconds. And you know what? We have to sit that. If you are of a nervous disposition, if you suffer from any heart problems, if you have any nervous disorders that don't allow you to watch sport of this caliber, then please don't watch the Giro d'Italia tomorrow, because it's going to be exactly the same again. If this man in the pink here, David Arroyo, can limit his losses on this final climb to Africa, then we will be in the same situation again as Liquigas try and batter the Spaniard into submission. 2 minutes, 27 seconds. He started behind David Arroyo today, and they've tried their level best as a complete team to destroy the pink jersey's lead, and it hasn't happened yet. Still a long climb, 13.9, but 44 seconds only is the gap. And for the first time, we saw a little crack maybe in Ivan Basso's climbing armory. Didn't look quite so settled. In fact, although the shades have gone on, Vincenzo Nibali looks a little bit more in good shape. Arroyo labouring away at the pedals in this steepest section. Evans takes to the front again. Another hugely courageous performance by Evans, as he was distanced on the steepest parts of the Mortirolo. The unmentioned man, the forgotten man here almost, is Michele Scarponi, who's just hung in there and hung in there and hung in there. Remember, we do have a final time trial in this year's Giro d'Italia, but at only 15 kilometres in length, Sean, there is nothing, unless it comes down to literally a handful of seconds, that is going to change this Giro d'Italia except tomorrow's stage.
Well, tomorrow's stage is the one where, you know, I think we could see a lot of changes again, depending on how we finish here today. And, you know, if Arroyo holds on to his race leader's jersey, tomorrow will be another day which the the team of Liquigas Basso, they'll have to just try again all over, and you know, just put him into difficulty, the race leader. And if we come to the final time trial, well then I think if it's a very small amount, handful of seconds, but as we see, the gap is growing out, and I think, you know, as I mentioned, that's where we have to wait and see these, you know, 2-3 kilometres. I think our 5 leaders, they're all pretty much close to an empty situation, getting very weak, and up front, of course, Nibali is really going to, you know, dig in here, and I'd be not be surprised if we see Scarponi also trying to do a bit if he's anything left. And of course, the stage victory, if the 2 Liquigas riders, you know, say to Scarponi, well, maybe if you work here well with you, we can, you know, give you the stage victory. Well, then there will be, you know, the very strong threesome. If Scarponi is capable of doing anything, I don't know. He looks like at the moment maybe he's starting to suffer, but now he's starting to go through. So the gap, you know, should go out normally, and how much will it grow out? That is the question.
Cadel, Sastre, Arroyo, Vinokurov, Evans. You saw, exactly as Sean was saying, Vincenzo Nibali giving it everything he could on the section that heads downhill. There's a couple of 2 or 3 ramps and drops before we get to about 5.5 kilometres here. They've got to push on, and Nibali just immediately got at the front and drove it along. Arroyo gets to the front now with Gadri in his wheel. Doesn't look as though they have quite as committed. Scarponi is really hanging in there. Great ride by Michele Scarponi once again, Sean.
Yes, you know, in that company, it's a great performance, and we can see him that he seems to be suffering. Although I find it, you know, very difficult to recognise when Scarponi is suffering. He always has that face on him, and you know, he always seems to be under pressure. But Basso, I think we can see that he's really digging in here, and of course he has to. Every second counts here, and at the moment he'll be well aware of what's happening with the 5 chasers. That the gap is around the minute, so he has to just keep on pushing as much as possible, and Scarponi doesn't seem to be able to do anything, and in that case they're really going to, you know, just ride on, and Basso of course will try and take the stage victory and get the bonification. That's for that also today, to get maximum time advantage on David Arroyo from the TestTeam team.
Well, it's a little early for it, but if you have a man of the match, so to speak, a ride of the day, feel free to tweet it on to spokesmen, or put it on cycling.eurosport@yahoo.com. So far, Sean, he may all turn around in the last 10 kilometres, but so far, ride of the day for you?
I think Arroyo was the ride of the day. You know, considering he was in the earlier part of the climb, very early in the climb, he started, you know, on the Mortirolo, losing contact, and we see him with Roberto Uran, and you know, just hung in there, and it looked like it was going to go out to 3 or 4 minutes for me, but you know, got together and just joined up with other riders, and you know, really finished strong on the last number of kilometres of the climb. And what a descent he made, because, you know, to come back on Vinokurov and really make a strong descent, and here he is, you know, just still pushing on. I think it's definitely the race leader. Arroyo is the man of the day.
Yep, I got to agree with you.
If he can continue on, if he doesn't pay dearly, you know, in these final kilometres, that is also the problem. You know, he's race leader. Sometimes, you know, you're a little bit overactive, and you could pay the price for this big time in the final number of kilometres. But it doesn't look like he's one of the strongest one in this 5 chasing group at the moment.
Did you notice though that Alexander Vinokurov pulled up, stopped pedalling, and just pulled to the side, took a drink, and said, "Well, go on, then you go and get it if you want it." Again. And Arroyo forced to go on. Vinokurov pulling him up that little drag, and then pulling off, saying, "No, you go and do some work." Evans gets to the front from last in the group to the front. Arroyo sitting there. Gadre behind. Vinokurov, then Sastre. 10 kilometres to go, 1:08. Still not a disaster. And as you said, Sean, Scarponi, now that he can, takes a turn on the front and does some work. All contributing, all helping. Basso comes through to the front. And then Nibali fairly long turns on the front now. There's no quick through and off here. They have to contribute maximum that they can with every turn they go through. Arroyo, he is in the pink jersey. He has to do a lot of work here. Oh, you can't sit up and wait. Maybe he's just not got much left in the tank, Sean. I just don't know, but he's got to make sure that he keeps going somehow. Well, clearly can't drag everybody to the line, but that's not a good way to be.
No, it's not a good way to be, but you know, he is suffering, and I think everybody is really pretty close to the end of their strengths today. And but you know, you have to just try and keep everybody working. And of course, Arroyo is the man who you know, really wants to keep this one rolling along and try and get as much as he can out of everybody, and try to get everybody share a bit of the pulling. And if he can get that, if he can get everybody to contribute here, you know, we can see 170 at the moment. The gap is not growing out drastically. I was expecting maybe that they would pull out very, very quickly on this final climb.
Two masks of pain in different ways. Michele Scarponi on the ragged edge now. Ivan Basso grits his teeth in the way that Aldo Sassi says he's a different athlete to Cadel Evans, for example. Evans, he says, is the more naturally gifted, stronger athlete. But Basso has this inner grit that he can call upon, and he takes to the front again. How much more has he got left before he goes pop? That's the question. And trying to drag out this gap. And surely the Liquigas car from behind will be saying, Sean, that there is some dissent in the following group. Keep pushing, push on.
Yes, well, he will be made aware that you know, they're a little bit unorganised, as we see with Arroyo just some moments ago, and the others are not prepared to ride. Vino Corvo, as we said. Sastre also, I don't think he's doing an awful lot here. Gadre probably not able, and there's Cadel Evans, who is, you know, really just contributing as much with Arroyo. And you know, Evans, you know, he just always keeps on riding, and you know, in the climb we see him there in difficulty, just keeps on fighting. Here again, fight on, you know, what a battler he is. And the gap at the moment is starting to creep out a little bit to 132 at the moment, but up front we can see Basso. He's really, you know, just on the rivet, as they say in cycling terms. He's just dying on the bike there, but you know, he's inside that 8 kilometers to go, and he knows, you know, this is the opportunity to win the Tour of Italy, make as much time as possible today, and hopefully that they can, you know, take over the race leaders, the race leadership tomorrow. And they know they can put Arroyo under difficulty, but I think they're surprised, Basso himself, the Liquigas team, that Arroyo, that he is, you know, just putting in such a great performance today.
Fabulous performance by Arroyo, but you could see just that glimmer, that slit behind his shades, just to the corners of David Arroyo's eyes. When we go back to that shot from the motorcycle, and you see the side of his face, the profile of a man who's really suffering now, David Arroyo. I'm absolutely certain that there's just virtually nothing left in the tank for David Arroyo. At least he's got Cadel Evans with him. It's pretty much even Stevens for those of you riding in on or tweeting in to spokesmen. Pretty much even Stevens between Arroyo and Evans for rides of the day so far. I think we've had 8 for Evans and 9 for Arroyo at the moment. Oh, another one for Arroyo. Arroyo seems to be inching into your favourite rider for the day, your man of the match at the moment, just ahead of Cadel Evans. 12 plays 8 at the moment. Scarponi works on the front. The gap is going out, Sean. 1:42. I'm not sure whether they can't get it together behind or whether they won't get it together behind. Probably the former.
Yes, well, can't get it together, and can't physically, I think, is the problem.
Yep.
And they're just on the limit. But up front as well, like our three leaders here, we can see Basso, like he's pulling faces there. He's giving it everything, and still with over 6 kilometers to go, there's a lot can happen here. If one of the men out front really blow for Basso, for example, on Nibali, well then this could change a lot, and this advantage could come down. Vice versa for the chasers, if they really start to suffer in this final 6 kilometers. Arroyo, he needs the other riders to contribute a bit. And we can see Vinokurov, he comes to the front there and he pulls on very hard, and that's that's important that you get a guy to do that. Maybe he doesn't do it all the time, but when he does that, you can take back a couple of seconds from our leaders, and it's all about now what they have left for this final 5.5, 6 kilometers.
Basso seems to be the one who's the strongest of the three at the moment. He's got a bike length over his teammate Vincenzo Nibali. Looking back to see if Scarponi can come with him. They've got the gap out to 1:45 at the moment. This looks a little bit like the stage, if you remember, when Ivan Basso rode away from Gilberto Simoni with that face on. Simoni just could not believe it. This time there are three together. Vinokurov does a turn on the front. Gadre gets there. Evans comes through. Looks a little bit more coordinated now. If it's no faster, it looks a little bit more coordinated, the chase. Three Italians lead a real mixture of riders behind. Gadre, a Frenchman. Evans, the Australian. Arroyo and Sastre, Spaniards. And Vinokurov from Kazakhstan. Towards the 5 kilometers to go, and Scarponi goes to the front again. Liquigas, well, they have to really be staking their claim as team of the Giro for sure, Sean.
Yes, I think by far, and of course in the team classement, they are the leaders of that classement and have been for the last number of days. And today with two men out in front, and the only team with two men represented up here in the leading part of the race. They're going to go further ahead again, and what race they have been riding the last number of days. They have been controlling the race, and they have really set the race alive once again today. And it looks like that their two leaders out front are starting to pull out a little bit of advantage, and it's up to them now. I think the team and the domestiques of the gregarios, as we say down here, they've done their job. It's just the two leaders have got to finish off their work of the day.
Absolutely flooded with tweets now. Ride of the day so far to you out there watching us here in Eurosport, whether you're watching on British Eurosport 2, Eurosport International, Eurosport World. The overwhelming sentiment is that David Arroyo, the Spaniard in the pink jersey, is the ride of the day, closely followed by Cadel Evans. Quite a number of you favouring Ivan Basso as ride of the day, and we've even had two ride supporters for Vincenzo Nibali being super strong. Now now Sastre kicks in, and the fellow Spaniard Arroyo gets on the wheel. Two Spanish riders working together. Looks across to where Arroyo is. Wants to keep that pace a little higher. Now Arroyo comes to the front once again. 2:27 was the gap. 4 kilometers to go. Oh, it looks like the pink jersey might be slipping away from David Arroyo after all in this stage, Sean.
Yes, it is just ticking away advantage to our three leaders, and it's just second by second on this line. But I think it's maybe just that little bit faster now in the last 2 kilometers, and it's just about paying the price, and it's normal. We've seen these 5 chasers; they have suffered on the Mortirolo, and you're going to pay again, because if you see the cracks in riders in the previous climb, you're going to get that again on the last climb of the day, and these 3 up front. They're really working well together. We can see they're just, you know, pulling through, riding very closely. Where our 5 leaders, we see Sastre, he gave a little bit of an extra effort there and took 2 bike lengths out of the rest, and Arroyo had to make the effort to come into the wheel. That doesn't help if you can ride really well together as the 3 leaders are doing here. And I think, you know, the advantage, as we can see, is just starting to grow out a little bit faster as we get closer to the finish.
David Arroyo fighting. He just has 5 seconds between himself and second place in the Giro d'Italia. He might have to give that pink bike back. 2:23. Sastre and Evans go through to do their turn on the front. It's basically 3 on 3 now, because Vinokurov is no longer contributing to that rear group. Neither is Jean Gadry. He's still flooding in with tweets of Arroyo being a ride of the day. Lots for Cadel Evans as well, but I would suggest, without counting them all, and I can't, they're coming in so quickly, but it is clear that Arroyo is your favorite rider of the day. Second is Cadel Evans, then Ivan Basso. Oh, the pink leader's jersey has just slipped shoulders from that of David Arroyo onto that of Ivan Basso. Basso is now leader on the road, and they are very tired Spanish legs. That Arroyo looks almost spent completely now. Sastre, look, turns up the temperature a little bit more, comes across in front of David Arroyo, wants to keep it going with 4 kilometers to go. And Arroyo has to get out of the saddle to fight to get there, but so does Evans. Vinokurov just sitting there. Maybe he couldn't do much more. 2:35, it's still within his grasp. If they could just make a little bit of time back. Arroyo may just hang on by a couple of seconds. With 2.6 kilometers to go, it's only 11 seconds, the gap between Ivan Basso and David Arroyo, as Arroyo gets on the front again. Oh, it's a huge ask to hang on to that pink jersey now, but a brave ride.
Yes, a real, performance from the race leader Arroyo, but he's just paying the price. And at the moment we can see Nibali is also going to move up in the general classroom, because he was in 6th position, but he was, what, 2:15 down on Evans, who was in 4th place. Richie Porte, we have no information where he's out on the road, and he was at 2:44, so we could see Nibali move into 3rd place, possibly a bit further up, depending on how much they can pull out. As we can see, it's growing all the time, 2:41 at the moment, so we could actually see Basso and Nibali 1st and 2nd of the general classement.
Yes, indeed. Liquigas showing their dominance in this year's Giro d'Italia, finally, with only 2 more days to go. But what a fight this man's put up, David Arroyo. He's had 2 top 10 finishes in the Giro d'Italia before. And Evans too. Well, all of them, to be frank. Evans suffering like a dog on the climb of the Mortirolo. Or should that be a dingo? Who knows? David Arroyo has to make up a little bit more time. Possibly can. Remember, with finish coming up, with just 3 kilometers to go. 2:49 is the gap. Already in the virtual pink jersey is Ivan Basso, still driving on. More Basso support coming in. Tweeted to spokesman, just letting, just saying that he is the ride of the day today. 2:53. It's no way back now for David Arroyo, with 1 kilometer to go. Vincenzo Nibali, well, there's a good case for Nibali too. He's done a great job for Ivan Basso, and even waited for him as they go on to the 1 kilometre to go banner. Our 3 leading men even waited for him on the descent of the Mortirolo, Sean.
Yes, I think Nibali has really done a good job, and he was under orders. We could see on the Mortirolo, he was really in difficulty on the steeper sections when Basso was pushing it on, but just hung on in there. And I reckon Basso could have been, getting information over his earpiece as well. Just take it back a fraction, because Vincenzo Nibali is under pressure here, and they need him so much for the descent, and more so for here, because this is where there's really counting. As we can see, they come up to this the final 500-600 meters. Interesting to see now who is going to go for the sprint here. Will Scarponi be allowed to take the stage victory by the 2 Liquigas riders, because he has contributed, but also the time bonifications
exactly.
are going to be very important here. Yeah,
oh, sorry, I was just about to say that, Sean. It's 20-12 and 8 seconds to play for, and they'll want every second they can possibly get. Maybe Nibali allowed to go for it.
But I think Scarponi has, contributed a lot here, and he's the one who is, a bit further down the general classman, not had a good race here, but he is, really been working quite strong with the Liquigas riders, and I'd be not surprised, if they have really just said to him, look, if you work with us today, you can have the stage victory.
And it does, in fact, seem to be the case. Michele Scarponi goes for the line. Scarponi takes the win with 20 seconds as well. 12 seconds extra goes to Ivan Basso, 8 to Vincenzo Nibali, and the clock starts to tick. 2:27 was the gap this morning between David Arroyo and Ivan Basso. The gap then will be 2:39 if you add the 12 seconds onto that. It looks like Basso is going to pull on the pink jersey today and go into the lead of this year's Giro d'Italia, and what a topsy-turvy race it has been. Almost normal order restored today, but the man who made it into that break and got hold of the pink jersey and has failed to loosen his grip until today is David Arroyo, pushing on now.
And Galway, of course, we haven't really mentioned him. He's put a pretty big performance today, because he's one of the riders. He's a good climber, but he's up here in the company, I think, a much greater company than he normally would be. So he's also put in a fabulous ride to be with those these top riders today.
Arroyo still pushes on. Evans in his wheel. Evans knows, I think, that it'll come down to another day, but it looks like he's fighting for podium place now rather than the pink jersey. He came in here as one of the big favourites. The whole of the press corps will be amazed at the efforts of David Arroyo, and still he's driving on and doing a really good job here, Sean.
Yes, he's doing a good job, and we can see the time there. It looked like that they had a bigger advantage, and we can see there they've just gone through the kilometre to go, and the gap, it looks like it has maybe come down a bit.
It does look like the gap's come down a little bit. I think they've been through the kilometre some time ago. 600 metres to go. Still fighting on. Remember that take the 12 seconds off. 2:15 is the gap they're looking at.
It looks like Basso is certainly moves into the race leadership, but not as much as it looked like 3-4 kilometres in the finish. It looked like that gap was going to grow out to be quite large. I think the 5 chasers here has pulled it back a little bit.
2:15 would be the gap that was needed by Ivan Basso to take the pink jersey. He's done that today. And now the rest of the group go for position. It's Alexander Vinokurov who goes through next. Great ride by Jean Gadret into his wheel. And the pink jersey finishes ahead of Carlos Sastre, 3 minutes and 7 seconds down. Well, Sean, unless unless a huge performance comes from the Caisse team tomorrow, and David Arroyo brings some allies back in. It looks to me as though Ivan Basso is in the pound seat for the win in this Giro d'Italia.
Yes, well, I think again tomorrow, such a difficult stage. It's going to be a repeat all over again, and the Liquigas team are just really going to make the race difficult for Arroyo. And I think Arroyo, he's really suffered there today. Probably suffered more than the other ones, although everybody has to a certain extent, and that will leave marks for tomorrow. And it looks like that the advantage for Basso, I think, will be about 132 of an advantage in the race leadership. 132 ahead of Arroyo, so it's not anything that I was expecting. I thought Arroyo would take a number of minutes today in the general classement and would really drop down in that ranking, but he's really dug deep, and can he continue that and produce it again tomorrow?
Here is David Arroyo. He knows he's lost the pink jersey. But a battling performance. A battling performance by David Arroyo. Once again, another day where he proved that he is one of the best riders in this year's Giro d'Italia as he wheels his way back down. Liquigas riders pointing to themselves going, yes, we've done it. We've got the pink jersey. You saw that there. And Arroyo's heart must sink when he sees that. Look, he's just wheeling his way by himself down the outside of the barriers. And we await the confirmation of the time gap between David Arroyo in second spot now and maybe even third, but I doubt it. Taking the plaudits of the crowd. Well done, that man. You can have my entire hat collection for today.
And maybe the advantage, a correction there in my calculation, maybe it's not as much, but still, Basso will definitely move in to the race leadership and into the pink jersey, and that is so important as well when you have a team that work, do so much, and going into the stage tomorrow, it's going to be the Liquigas team is having to control the race anyway. So to be in the race leadership, it's a situation to be in, and maybe around the minute, a little bit under possibly for Basso takes over the leader's jersey.
Stage results then. Michele Scarponi takes the win ahead of Ivan Basso and Vincenzo Nibali. We 3:05 back. Oh, so even 2 seconds less than we thought back. Now, my calculations, I may got this completely wrong in the excitement. My calculations were somewhere around 53 seconds of a gap. We will check in just a second. You never can tell. It's that face we've seen from Ivan Basso. Once more, Dario Cioni coming in for Team Sky. And with him is Damiano Cunego just behind him. Not Cunego's day today. He was much better on the Zoncolan than he was on Mortirolo. But a long way back for the Little Prince. Winner in 2004, Dario Cioni, as no stranger to the Giro d'Italia. Anglo-Italian parentage for the Team Sky rider, and probably his best performance for a long time. Cioni, this consistency. Still awaiting that confirmation for exactly what the time gap is going to be for tomorrow. It's just as frustratingly, tantalizingly exciting for that as it is for anything else. Well, thank you for all your contributions on Twitter today at Spokesmen. Basso has a lot of support today for Ride of the Day, but the overwhelming Ride of the Day has gone to David Arroyo, closely followed by Evans. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our coverage today of this incredible stage 19 of the Giro d'Italia. Every day's been incredible. Sean, I can't remember a Grand Tour. Here we are, 51 seconds it is. We're almost there. 53 is what we had. 51 seconds, even less than we thought. Well, draw a deep breath, folks, because as I said, if you've got a nervous disposition, don't come back tomorrow, because it's going to be the same all over again with less than a minute between David Arroyo and Ivan Basso.